Welcome to the vault. Comparisons in the UCLA dorm murder versus the Idaho 4 slayings. Thank you for joining me. abcnews.go.com is the source. Westwood, the picturesque Los Angeles neighborhood home to UCLA, is the perfect college town. According to one student, it's beautiful. It feels safe. But one morning in September 2015, just as the new school year began, a bright, promising student was brutally stabbed to death and set on fire in her Westwood apartment in an unfathomable crime that sent shockwaves across the campus. Andrea Delvesco was a adventurous 21-year-old studying psychology. When Andrea was in high school, she loved learning. She was always reading, going to museums, said her mother, Leslie Delvesco, to ABC News. She was interested in studying psychology. I thought that it is a perfect career for you. You're a natural. She blossomed at UCLA, where she loved hanging out with her Pi Beta Phi sorority sisters and doting on her dog named Shay Panda. After we had moved Andrea in, her mom recalled, I looked at her and I said, honey, this is your opportunity to grow and to be whoever you want to be. Where's Andy? In the early hours of September 21st, 2015, Sarah Muir, another Pi Phi sister who lived above Delvesco in a Westwood apartment complex, called 911. I woke up because I heard somebody screaming and I heard a dog barking, Muir said to ABC News. I called Andy's phone a couple of times. She didn't answer. And I immediately just dialed 911. I just had this terrible feeling. Unquote. Responding officers spoke with Muir and then started to look at the various apartments, including Delvesco's, according to Victor Avila, a deputy district attorney in Los Angeles County. The officers did not notice any damage or any signs of a break-in, Avila said to ABC News. They did not see anything, and given what they had, they didn't feel at the time that it was necessary for them to knock on any doors. And so at that point, they left. After the officers left, Muir said she heard a loud noise from a room below her. So I run to my balcony and then saw Andy's room on fire. And then this guy running out of Andy's room. And he's like got a blanket over himself, she said. I ran out to the street and saw this red car driving away. Unquote. In the car's back window were letters for the Lambda Chi Alpha fraternity. All the other girls started to wake up because the fire alarms were going off. And then everyone's like, where's Andy? Muir said. Once the fire is out, firefighters were able to see the body of a young woman who was on the bed. Her body was charred, almost unrecognizable, Avila said. They also noticed that there was a dog. The dog was belabored, breathing. He was burnt. The killer tried to cover up his crime. The shocked Pi Phi sisters told police they had all been together the night before, drinking wine at home and preparing for sorority rush. She did not have a boyfriend at the time, so we thought it have been a Tinder date gone wrong, sorority sister Jackie Maduro said to ABC News. Just thinking about the fear she must have gone through, I was just really scared. Andrea Delvesco was stabbed 19 times throughout her body, including 2 cuts to her neck, Avila said. A trash can had been put on her bed and set on fire. No smoke was found in Andrea Delvesco's lungs, so it appeared she was killed before the fire was set, Avila said. Detectives believe the killer tried to cover up his crime by setting her and her room on fire, he said. As soon as Andy's mom arrived in Los Angeles, she said she wanted to see her daughter's body. I knew she was dead, but part of me didn't want to accept it until I had seen her, Leslie Delvesco said. I just wanted to hold her one last time. And the police said, well, we cannot allow that until the autopsy has been completed. But she was allowed to go to the animal hospital to see her daughter's injured dog, Shay Panda. The doctor came over and he said, she is suffering. We all agreed that it was better if we just let Shay Panda go to join Andrea, she said. We said goodbye to Shay Panda and sent her to kiss Andrea for us, and then it hit me. If Andrea was involved in that same fire, what her body must have looked like. Fresno State student arrested. As officers swarmed the college campus, two UCLA students who lived across the street from Andrea Delvesco's complex told officers that their apartment was burglarized around the time when Sarah Moore had reported individual out in front of her apartment, Avia said. Items stolen from their apartment included laptops and Sonos speakers, which you have to register online in order to use, Avia said. 2 days after Andrea Delvesco's murder, a representative from Sonos Speakers tells a police officer someone did try to register those stolen Sonos speakers online using a new email address. With the email address, detectives have the name of someone in Fresno who was connected to the speakers. Police contacted that individual listed on the email, Avia said. That individual told police officers he borrowed the speakers from his roommate, Alberto Medina. Medina's roommate tells them that Alberto Medina was down in Los Angeles visiting a friend at UCLA that weekend, Avia said, and that when he came back, he had these Sonos speakers. Medina, a 22-year-old Fresno State University student with no criminal record, admitted to police that he stole the speakers, a laptop, and alcohol. Medina told the officers that the friend he was visiting, Eric Marquez, was the one who killed Andrea Delvesco, but officials said the evidence told a different story. Sarah Moore made the 911 call about the fire and about the suspect fleeing the scene sometime around 7:01 a.m., Avia said. Sarah sees this individual jumping over Andrea's balcony onto the courtyard, and his back is covered with a red blanket. Surveillance video showed Medina and Marquez returning to Marquez's apartment around 7:06 a.m. and showed Medina wearing a red blanket, officials said. Marquez told police he was heavily intoxicated, Avia said. He doesn't remember what's been shown to him on the surveillance video, and he can't remember the details of the critical hour when the murder happened. Police found Medina had several scratches and abrasions on him while Marquez had none, according to Avia. Police also learned Medina's red car matched the car that Muir spotted, down to the detail of the Medina's fraternity sticker, Avia said. Andrea Delvesco's DNA was recovered from blood smears on Medina's car, Avia said, and in Medina's room, police found Andrea Delvesco's red blanket and a bloody knife that matched the set from her apartment. Serving his punishment. On September 21st, 2018, 3 years to the day after the college senior's life was taken, her convicted killer, Alberto Medina, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Medina had been found guilty in May 2018 of murder, arson, burglary, and animal cruelty. According to one of Andrea's roommates, Andrea fell asleep at about 3 a.m. Later that morning, the detectives believe Medina went inside her apartment, Avia said. He stabbed her 19 times while she was screaming. Then he is able to remain in that room while police officers are investigating the disturbance for that first 911 call. He doesn't panic. He remains in the room and then thinks about how to destroy evidence, and he does so by setting her and her room on fire. The conviction brought huge relief to her mom. He was finally going to be serving his punishment for killing Andrea, Leslie Delvesco said. As for Eric Marquez, Avia said, there was insufficient evidence to show that Marquez knew exactly what happened inside Andrea Delvesco's apartment. We believe that it was best to settle the case with Marquez for something that was more appropriate to his conduct. Marquez pled guilty to aiding and abetting the burglary of Andrea Delvesco, an accessory after the fact. He received a sentence of 2 years and 8 months in state prison. 7 years after Andrea Delvesco's murder, her mom says there's a big lesson in her short life. Andrea was here to show us a deeper understanding of what love is, Leslie Delvesco said. She taught me that love is boundless and infinite, and for us all to treasure the moments that we do have with each other. Thank you for listening. This is ABC News. I brought you this story because this is a story of a Caucasian female stabbed 19 times in her bed, and she left her balcony door open, ground level, open to the elements for a perpetrator to come in the night and steal her life. He stabbed her 19 times. And to cover up his tracks, he set the apartment on fire. And by the grace of God, somebody heard her scream and her dog bark. That is her sorority sister who lived above her in an entirely different apartment. Stay woke. Someone heard her scream. Someone heard the dog barking and decided to call 911. And although the perpetrator lied in wait in the room to cover up the evidence while the police are outside investigating the 911 call, he set the room on fire and left out, not knowing he was seen on camera and by a sorority sister who was not going to stay mum. What is the difference between this story and the story in Moscow, Idaho? These people shared an entire house together, and there was an eyewitness on the same floor as two people brutally stabbed to death in another room, yet knew of nothing, allegedly. Saw the perpetrator walk by her, shut her door, and went to sleep or stayed awake and made a 911 call many hours later, she and another roommate. You be the judge of what happened at 1122 King Road, November 13, 2022. Here's the testimony of the roommates that called 911. I use discretionary in using other content because of copyright claims, so I'm only playing a brief part of the documentary. Thank you for joining me. You are now listening to The Vault. Thank you.
And you feel comfortable.
Well, it's wonderful to think that you can leave your doors unlocked. Don't.
I woke up because I heard somebody screaming.
Paramedic operator 84, the address of the emergency.
That's 109-4. Oh my god, the whole apartment is on fire. We need an ambulance.
It's a visual you don't forget.
Andy, the guy that you saw went out of there. In what direction did you see him running? He ran to the right.
We found an adult female in the fire.
I was just really scared.
This was an intentional fire. This was a violent death.
We just couldn't believe that someone would have done this to her on purpose.
Got a conscience. That was there. Okay.
Detectives have two different stories, so who's telling the truth?
This can't be happening.
Who was telling the truth? In the end, they got their guy. He was visiting another student who lived across the street from Andy. Drunk, inebriated, he and the guy he was visiting. What made him decide to crawl onto that balcony and go inside this apartment? I will tell you why. He saw Andy that night on the balcony, and obviously he fancied what he saw and decided to play funny games in breaking into her apartment and attempting to rape her. Stabbed her 19 times. To cover up his deviant crime, he set the apartment on fire. And by the grace of God, she was able to scream, although her neck was also cut in two places. Somebody heard their sorority sister scream. Somebody heard the dog barking. Somebody decided to call somebody else. Somebody decided to call that roommate. No answer. Somebody decided to say something ain't right. Somebody decided to get up. Somebody decided to run and look out. Somebody got an ID on a fraternity sticker on the back of a red car. Somebody decided to call 911. Thank you for joining me. We'll now play you the latest information pertaining to the Idaho force slayings. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ began to 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome. During this live stream, we will once again take a deep dive into this case and the latest information coming out pertaining to the suspect, Brian Koberger. People have testimonies pertaining to his disposition, who he was in school, allegations that his sister was at the crime scene taking pictures. Do not know if that is true, if that is the actual sister that is seen photographed with the public defender. Favors her, though. Why did he fly out to Pennsylvania? What is wrong with flying? You heard the officer say that to he and his father during one of the traffic stops. You all afraid of flying? Did he go out to Pennsylvania to dump the car? Which would be crazy because you've already registered it in the state of Washington. I do believe he knew that authorities were on his tail because of the 2 traffic stops. We have information and verification that he was cleaning his car thoroughly inside and out in Pennsylvania. He knew they were on his tail, so you have to ask yourself the obvious. Did he clean his car before, after the crimes in Washington? There is information that he drove somewhere in Idaho in the late hour, and one would suspect he was discarding items and the weapon, or hiding the weapon. Registered a car 5 days after the killings of the kids. Still walked around the town for a month before riding across country with his father to then wear surgical gloves dumping trash in neighbors' trash bins. Why? Because he knew they were onto him. FBI tracked him through surveillance, satellite, crossing many states to Pennsylvania. He knew they were onto him because there was no reason, one, to drive across country. You're entitled to do what you want, of course, but it seems suspect under the circumstances. Cleaning your car vigorously when that's something you should have done after killing the kids, allegedly. Emptying trash into other people's bins is very suspect. And one could say you're not that OCD because, one, you live in this house with your family, and it makes no logical sense to be up in the night dumping trash at different people's bins, which shows guilt. Circumstantial indeed, but very highly circumstantial. Factor in pings at the residence 12 times, returning to the crime scene at 9:30 a.m. and DNA on a snap button of the sheath that held the knife. Thank you so much for joining me. One moment, please.
having seen something horrible. And then he goes on to say, one passed out and the other one was hyperventilating.
Let me go
The
back
message wasn't
just a
clear
little bit
enough
on all
in
this.
But an unconscious person when there was apparently a bloodbath in their home. And this is what we are learning, that Steve Gonzalez may have told this NBC News outlet, that you got to remember these two girls were so upset that when they went outside after seeing this, it wasn't very legible. They couldn't quite understand what the girls were seeing. He's referring to the 911 operator trying to make sense of what these two girls were saying over the phone. But he's saying that they ran outside having seen something horrible. And then he goes on to say, one passed out and the other one was hyperventilating, that the message wasn't clear enough for the operator. This makes a lot more sense. That maybe those girls did see part of or some of the bloodbath in the morning and tried to call and could not get the message out to the operator. And one of them is hyperventilating and the other is passing out. And then they just say, hey, we got an unconscious person. We got an unconscious person there. I want to bring in Mark O'Mara. He's a criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney as well. This, Mark, has been a missing piece for a long time. And I mean, it certainly helps us to understand the mystery of the morning, but there's still a lot of holes. And I just want to get your thoughts on that for starters. And then I'm going to ask you all about the defense.
Yeah, there's so much intrigue in the 6 or 8 hours that nobody called anybody. Perhaps there was something that we don't know about yet. Perhaps they were drinking, or not to impugn their integrity, but were they intoxicated on drugs or alcohol or something? That makes a lot more sense than this woman sees this attacker, or at least a stranger, in her house with a mask on, drives or walks by, and she does nothing for the better part of 6 or 8 hours. That makes no sense, and quite honestly, may well be fodder for the defense, because defense attorneys just look for anything to suggest an inexplicable event.
Exactly.
And that's reasonable to happen.
So what about the notion that Koberger matched one of these roommates, DM? We know it's Dylan because we've been talking about these surviving roommates for quite some time. Dylan said that he had bushy eyebrows. She saw bushy eyebrows. That's manna from heaven for prosecutors to have a witness actually give that kind of detail about a face. Not just, he was 6'2" or 5'10" and a light build. It's bushy eyebrows.
No question that is going to be one of the sort of star pieces of evidence of a prosecution's case. The witness on scene can identify at least 3 or 4 or 5 different characteristics of this person. Again, this is an extraordinarily strong case of forensic tying together a noose, if you will, around Koberger's neck already. And we've only seen 17 pages. Before we're done, actually, there's going to be tens of thousands of pages of discovery on this case.
True. Okay, I got to ask you about cell phone pings because we've been, making huge hay about cell phone pings. Literally have a roadmap, to Frank Koberger. But there was one line in the affidavit that I thought, I know Mark O'Mara is going to seize on that, and every defense attorney out there will seize on it. It said that his cell phone pings in Moscow, November 14th. That's the day after. That's Monday after the murders. But investigators, quote, do not believe the phone was in Moscow on that date. Well, then why should anybody believe the phone was in Moscow on any of the other dates? Is that what a defense attorney will say in this case?
Absolutely. It's that one little string that you want to pull on, that seed of doubt that may grow into reasonable doubt. In and of itself, maybe not enough, but we don't know what she's doing for 8 hours. Now we know the phone wasn't there. Now we know why wasn't she saying anything. Now we know that 100 people have left DNA. Why is? There's so much more information that needs to come out. But I will tell you, if the next couple of 3 or 4 months are as good an investigative technique as the last couple of months to get us to this point, they've done quite a good job. And of course, with FBI assistance, I must say the best law enforcement agencies in the world, they're going to tie down every loose end on this one.
Do they ever? Because just that timeline that we're looking at on the screen right now, it's got a 2-hour hole in the cell phone, right? Police say that's just when he turned it off because he didn't want to be pinged there. But he's leaving Pullman, and then he disappears, and then he's coming back to Pullman before and after the murders. And is that doubt, or is that reasonable doubt, or is that no? Well, it depends on what the jury thinks, if it's reasonable or not. I have to leave it there. Mark, you'll come back again, won't you? Because I'm going to call a lot.
Absolutely.
Marco Barrett joining.
News Nation is the source. You get a timeline of everything starting from the time he left his house at about 2:42, 2:47, up until 4:48 when the phone turns back on at his house, which is highly suspect. Because if you've been home all night, your phone really doesn't have any reason to be going on and off unless you're turning it off or putting it on airplane mode. Thank you for joining me. What more evidence do they have against BK? What else will we learn pertaining to this diabolical case? Why didn't someone call 911? The very reason I played you that brief commentary of the young lady who called 911 in California when she heard her roommate below her, or apartment mate, scream and a dog bark. They didn't even live in the same apartment. Separate units. Imagine that. This girl is in the house, she and another mate. And she is actually on the floor where two people are brutally stabbed. And she's hearing a dog barking above, someone allegedly playing with their own dog, someone saying someone's here, someone whimpering, a thud, and then opening and closing doors 3 times in at least a 20-minute interval. Obviously, the suspect is in the house at some point while she's opening and closing doors. Third time opening a door, DMC's Brian Kohlberger. And he does nothing. He doesn't accost her. He has brutally killed 4 people. Did he leave her alive deliberately because he was 1, tired, 2, had tunnel vision, 3, she wasn't his target and didn't care. He wanted to leave her alive to show he had control of this situation. Hear what evidence ex-prosecutor thinks is important in the Idaho murders. Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to The Vault. CNN is the source.
You think after watching Gary's report there about how strong the evidence is, the evidence, I guess unbeknownst to all of us who were following this case for weeks there, we didn't realize they had some evidence to work off of, these investigators.
Yeah, Jim, I think the evidence is exceptionally strong. And like you, I was eager to see this complaint because all that you have to do as a prosecutor in a complaint like this is establish probable cause. That's a fairly low standard. And sometimes in these complaints, that's really all you'll see. But here, the prosecutors went way above that in terms of the evidence. The DNA evidence is really the most important piece. As Gary said, there was a sample of DNA recovered from a knife sheath at the scene that has been matched to this suspect by a 99.9998 probability scientifically. That is very powerful evidence. On top of that, the police really did an exceptional job analyzing his cell phone records, his automobile records, to place him definitively at the scene of the crime. And on top of that, we know that this individual showed some signs that he was trying to cover up his tracks afterwards. So when you take it all together, Jim, it's really a powerful and I think compelling show.
But Ellie, one thing that investigators have not revealed to the public or put their finger on is motive. How important is that to the case at this point?
So there's a really important distinction here that people sometimes, I think, get crossed up. As a prosecutor, you do have to prove intent, meaning that the person acted on purpose, that he intended to kill. You do not have to prove legally motive, which is the why did the person kill. Now, you want to be able to prove motive. It helps explain the case to the jury, but you don't have to. And it's also, I think, worth noting, the complaint does suggest a potential motive here. They talk about the fact, and Gary alluded to this, that 12 different times this individual went by that house. And as Gary said, it's not something you would pass by. So there could be a suggestion here that there was some sort of stalking or obsessive type of motive.
And it does seem as though Brian Kohlberger was at the scene of the killings. What is stopping his defense team from just saying, okay, he was there, but he didn't kill anybody? I mean, I suppose they could try that sort of defense. who has the burden of proof?
So the prosecutor always bears the burden of proof of proving its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest standard in our system. I do expect that may well be a defense. Sure, they can prove he's there, but can they prove he did the killing? And I think the prosecutors are going to come back with, first of all, he doesn't know any of these people.
Exactly.
As far as we know, he has no reason to be there. I don't know that there's any evidence that anyone else was there. And here's where I think the evidence that this individual tried to cover up his tracks after the fact becomes so important. Our John Miller, our colleague, has reported that the police watched him. He went to his parents' house in Pennsylvania. They watched him cleaning his car inside and out. They watched him wearing surgical gloves. They watched him take his garbage out at 4 a.m. and then put it not in his own parents' garbage cans, but in a neighbor's garbage can. I think that is really important. I think that's really powerful in the jury.
Exactly.
He was charged with 4 counts of murder in the first degree. Is that aiming too high, do you think, for the prosecutors?
No, I think that's exactly appropriate here. What makes this a first-degree murder under Idaho law is that it was premeditated, that it was planned. It wasn't something that happened on the spur of the moment, in a fight, spontaneously, unexpectedly. So I do think it's appropriate that these prosecutors have brought first-degree charges here.
All right, Ellie Honig, thanks so much. Great to see you. Appreciate it.
All right, what is the evidence besides what they have thus far against BK? Phone pings, data, evidence on a sheath, being at the house 12 times, dead-end street, narrow streets. Where are you going? Who are you going to see? You don't know anybody on the street, in the neighborhood, or the victims. You don't know any of their friends or associates. If they can prove that, plus DNA, slam dunk. It is the burden of the prosecution to prove he murdered these kids. Premeditation. He is facing life or death in the state of Idaho. Will he say somebody else killed the kids? I have a feeling that will be his defense, especially if more evidence comes forward inside of the bedrooms commingling with blood of the victims, because that is the card he is getting ready to play. I'm just going to see what they have first before I chitter-chatter with my attorney. Imagine a blonde-haired woman sitting beside a man who just sliced and diced 2 blonde-haired beauties and a brunette male. Imagine that. Sitting beside women and you don't like women. You don't have respect for women. They have not been your favorite fan. And now you're sitting beside a Caucasian female with long blonde hair. Oh my. Imagine that. What is Kohlberger thinking? Sitting beside this blonde-haired lady, excuse me. What is she thinking beside this madman that has sliced up these kids for no damn reason? But that is her job, no matter the circumstances surrounding the crime. She is there to defend her client. But you have to admit, from what we have heard from friends, associates of BK, he did not do well in the friend department, lady department. Awkward, narcissistic, talked over professors, was a know-it-all. Stalked these kids from the way it looks, if we were to go by the data on his phone. And now he's sitting beside a blonde-haired woman, not a male public defender, but a woman. Stay woke now. Very interesting. We hear of someone coming forward, a male, that he used drugs with Kohlberger. They would go purchase narcotics together, get high together when he was getting high on heroin as a young person. He didn't see any signs that he was subversive or subversive to women. This is this one male's testimony pertaining to the older past BK. But you don't hear of him having a girlfriend either by anyone who has spoken that knew him in the past. Why is that? Has he not had sexual relations with a woman or girl? Is he still a virgin? Is he angry because he has never had sexual relations with a woman? He has gone on a date with one woman, Tinder date, but we do not know if he has dated or went on any dates with any other females or by any other dating apps. So we're going to ask the ultimate question. Has Mr. Kohlberger ever been intimate with a woman in any form or fashion? We're also going to ask if he's had any dealings sexually with men. Because, a person can be very angry at their sexual orientation and take it out on the opposite sex, because that is the sex that they're supposed to be desiring, vice versa. And imagine if he's angry, not getting attention from women, and could it be possible that he has desires for men? I don't know. But it says that he believes in traditional marriage, so that means he wouldn't be allegedly desiring men or bisexual, homosexual. It is said he has had not so many nice things to say about the LGBTQ community and other minorities. So was he a racist, sexist, homophobic? Thank you for joining me. I will bring you that said information after the audio plays. Former FBI agent, special agent says he lashed out. News Nation is the source. Indeed, he did. But he left two living. Imagine that.
Coffindoffer, former FBI agent, for her perspective on all of this. So Jennifer, thank you for being here tonight. We'll dive right in. Since the release of that probable cause affidavit, a lot more details have emerged, as we both know. Many of us, though, still wondering what was the motivation behind these murders. So do you see a narrative emerging from these newly released details?
Yes, I do. I believe it was a true femicide situation. I think that he has struggled his whole life to really have acceptance. If indeed Brian Kohlberger is found convicted of these crimes, that's what we're seeing with his background. There were also other incidents that led up to this situation, even one at a bar where he was actually banned from the bar for his actions toward a female there. I think all of this speaks to possible, hatred toward women, and something that just built up inside of him, and he lashed out.
Wow. Well, the suspect, Brian Kohlberger, has not yet entered a plea. As Robert mentioned, the defense received the judge's approval to preserve the crime scene for several more weeks. So what do you believe the defense is doing now to help build their case?
Well, they are poring over that probable cause affidavit, Kelly. They want to look at every single fact that was given there. They want to fact check it. They also want to look for any little holes. And there are some holes in that affidavit. Just the way it was written, there's certain things that don't line up. And they're going to be scouring that and finding issues with it. So that's what mainly they're going to be working on.
So one of the two surviving roommates saw the alleged killer walking out of the house that night. How important do you think she'll be to this case going forward?
I think she is important from the standpoint that nothing else that we have right now actually puts him there other than the sheath with the DNA. But this is an eyewitness that at least can say there was a figure there. He had bushy eyebrows. And that puts that male there in that sort of clothing. Remember, we don't have yet the evidence that has hopefully, possibly been found from those 4 search warrants. And if any part of articles or indicia of this crime is found as a result of those search warrants, Kelly, that is going to be what will be the nail in the coffin on this case.
Really, really interesting. As always, Jennifer Coffindoffer, thank you for your time tonight.
Kelly, thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. News Nation. He lashed out. Why did he lash out against these innocent people? He doesn't know them. Allegedly, he does not know them, doesn't have any hasn't had any contact? Or has he had contact with somebody in that house? Did somebody innocently speak to him in public or on a social media site post? He took it the wrong way. A simple hello in a grocery store, a restaurant, or sidewalk. What led him to these kids and to, I believe, stalking would be the appropriate word, if we are to believe the phone pings at this house 12 times or more? You don't just innocently go somewhere where the street dead ends 12 times. You go once, you'll see that it dead ends. You don't need 11 more times. What led him to these kids? Who was the target? And if one was the target, once again, why would you kill the other two? Because people are going to question this. You had one target, but you still killed 3 others, but then you spared 2. Makes no sense. You've been to the house 12 times, so you watched the house during daylight time, so you knew and saw people coming and going from the house, men and women. Stay woke. He knew others lived there. He had seen vehicles there. So by no means could he ever say he didn't know who lived in the house. He may not have known them personally, but he knew of them as the man or woman. And that's where your premeditation comes in. The going back and forth, back and forth. You had to have known. Did he lie in wait in the woods and watch the girls fraternize on the back balconies to target in on the target? Oh, she stays there in that room. She's the one I want. I want her. I'm going to have her. And I will take down whoever gets in my way. Is that you, Brian C. Koiberger? But the odd part about that, if we're to believe the others were not the target, you left 2 behind. Why is that? And one could identify you. So one would say he wanted to get caught because he left behind evidence. But yet you're cleaning up at home and washing the car down inside and out and putting trash in the neighbor's trash. So then that contradicts leaving a witness, whether you saw her or not, whether you had tunnel vision or not, whether she was drunk or not. Something made her open the door 3 times. That's point blank. She froze, meaning something made her freeze in a house that keeps company, traffic. So why not call 911 once your door is shut and closed and locked? Hell no, I'm calling 911. Something don't look right with this fella. Never seen him before, but my gut tells me he's behind the noise and the whimpering and the thud. Near 8 hours later or less, a 911 call goes into the dispatch. Will this case fall because of this eyewitness? Him sparing 2 roommates her ID of him. What other DNA do they have to link Koiberger to this crime scene? Will we get a empathetic jury member? God forbid. Thank you for joining me. More content to bring to you pertaining to this diabolical case. Hear what shocked ex-FBI agent about Idaho suspect's behavior after the killings. CNN is the source. Did he want to get caught or not?
Being loaded into trucks and taken away. CNN's Gary Tuckman is on the scene for us as investigators try to work out exactly what happened inside that building.
In the probable cause affidavit, a Moscow, Idaho police corporal says after finding the victims who were killed, I noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. Police say the DNA is suspect Brian Kohlberger's.
This is the house where the college students were killed. According to the affidavit, when police arrived, they went through that door where the Christmas wreath is. On the second floor to the right of the door, is the bedroom where Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were killed. Also on the second floor to the left, in the back of the house, according to the affidavit, that's where the witness DM was. And finally, on the third floor, you see that window right there. According to the affidavit, that's where Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan were, and that's where the knife sheath was found.
Based on the affidavit, it appears Brian Kohlberger has been near this house many times before. The affidavit indicating Kohlberger's cell phone signal was detected 12 times near the house over a period of 5 months prior to the murders. All of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours of their respective days.
It wouldn't necessarily be suspicious if Brian Kohlberger drove past this house 12 times over 5 months if these were busy or prominent streets, or streets on the way to another neighborhood. But to come here, you have to be looking for it. These roads are winding, they're narrow, they're curvy.
In short, it seems difficult to accidentally end up here. The affidavit states that one of the students who survived with the initials DM heard crying and opened her door 3 times. She saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM and she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not state that she recognized the male. This turned out to be critical information because on November 25th, shortly after the murders, Moscow police asked law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra that had been seen near the murder site.
4 days later, police discovered a white Elantra in this parking lot just across the state line in Pullman, Washington. According to the affidavit, it was registered to Kohlberger, who lived up these stairs in this townhouse complex. Police acquired his driver's license information, and they say, according to the affidavit, that it was consistent with DM's description of the man she saw, who was wearing black clothing and a mask.
The affidavit does not contain information about motive or if the alleged killer knew any of the victims, but authorities could very well have leads about those topics that are not being publicly released yet.
Next Thursday in this courthouse behind me, Brian Kohlberger will have another hearing. This will be a status hearing to discuss scheduling in the case. Within the next couple of weeks, he will be arraigned, where he will likely issue a plea.
Let's bring in now Tracy Waldner. She is a former CIA officer and a former FBI special agent. Tracy, so good to see you. So I want to ask you about all the things that we've been learning about the suspect, but I do want to caution viewers that there are some graphic details that could come up in our conversation. So do want you to be braced for that. So Tracy, what does it tell you that the suspect was allegedly around the house multiple times before the killings?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Frederica. So what that does tell me is that he was indeed, unfortunately, stalking these victims, because what's also important is the absence of cellular information during that time frame of the killings that you mentioned. So to have your cell phone ping around that area when you don't live in that vicinity, his vicinity at WSU would have hit on a different cell phone tower. 12 pings in the time frame leading up to the killings, in the months leading up to the killings, that's significant. But what's also significant is that there was no cell phone activity for 2 hours.
Yes.
Is it your suspicion that there was some sort of interaction? I mean, you're using the word stalking. There was some interest that he allegedly had in these victims. Do you feel like it may have been precipitated by some interaction? I mean, how would you examine the evidence to discern that?
So one of the best ways to get information to discern that would actually be social media. Had he had any interactions just in terms of liking things on their social media,
exactly,
or vice versa?
Exactly.
I do believe, and I've always kind of aspired to this theory and agreed with this theory, that he came into contact, but it was most likely brief. It may not have even piqued the radar of the victims. And I believe that's probably how he selected one, two, or all of them as his target. So social media would really come into play there, as well as witness testimony of any interactions.
And then investigators clearly are probably still poring over all the social media, presence of any and all of the victims. And I recall hearing from many who've looked at a lot of the Instagram, there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of activity that has been posted by these victims. So police say Koberger, he also cleaned his car very carefully and also took care of disposing of trash at his parents' house. So we know that he had been studying criminology. What does all of this tell you about his awareness, perhaps using information he has learned as a student? I mean, preparing himself for not just the crime allegedly, but for afterwards.
You know what's fascinating about that, Frederica, is I'm actually an adjunct faculty of criminal justice at Texas Christian University, and it's surprising to me how much he didn't learn necessarily.
Exactly.
And the reality is and we teach all students, trash becomes public property once it's out there on the street. And so the fact that he was trying to circumnavigate that and place it into neighbors' trash cans, it is a bit shocking to me, quite frankly. And then also the fact that he was doing so in the reports I read on CNN at 4 a.m., FBI, myself included, we run surveillance all hours of the day. So he had to have known or suspected that he would have been watched had he done something like that. I do believe that he is arrogant and has an ego big enough to think that he is smarter than everyone else and that he had outsmarted the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you really paint the picture on that, it makes me rethink the whole cell phone pings. Obviously, that is something that you would learn too as a student of criminology, all of the things that would be indicators that eventually can be evidence of your whereabouts and how he probably should have known that, but I guess didn't. So a roommate in the house, identified by the document as DM, said a masked person walked right past her. She opened up the door and, she recalls the bushy eyebrows, but that he didn't harm her, but that it was described that she kind of froze. I mean, what does that moment tell you about, maybe is it the element of surprise, or is there anything about familiarity, or what do you dissect from that moment?
So I just dissect a couple of things from that moment. First of all, a lot of people are being quite harsh to that young lady, and we don't know what we would do in a situation like that. I truly think that he probably didn't see her. I believe that she saw him. I looked at the floor plan of the house again, just to kind of figure out what that angle would have looked like. I believe that after he most likely killed Xana and Ethan, he was just looking to get straight out of that house. And she just had her door just cracked a little bit.
That's the only way it would have worked.
He may not have seen her. And I think that she completely froze at that point. So in my opinion, that's what happened there. But I do believe Koberger was probably familiar with the house and that he had to go all the way up to the 3rd floor for 2 of the victims.
All right, everybody. I'm glad she said that about DM, that the door was possibly cracked. That's to give her some credit, as so we don't seem very mean and wondering why in the hell this young lady didn't call 911. Did she on the 3rd round crack the door out of fear, and he came through there rushing after killing Xana and Ethan and didn't pay attention to the door being cracked? But the part of that doesn't make any sense is the fact that she said she stood in the doorway. So you can't be standing in the doorway and then be looking through the crack of a door. It's either one or the other. It's either one or the other. Did he pass her? Or he walked towards her? You can walk toward a person and then pass them. See, this is where it's dicey. Because if I'm standing in a doorway, then the door can't be cracked. You can't stand in a cracked doorway. It's not possible unless you're Jesus. So did she stand with the door cracked partially, an inch, to where she could see a figure coming around the corner, or the whole damn door was wide open and he walked right by a whole person? Which is it? And we have a right to ask, because this is what you all have put in the affidavit. Maybe you should have left that part out, Chief Fry. Because hell yeah, we're going to ask. because in the end, you don't know these people. And as I told people during my live stream last night, one of my mods, Miss T, is that this case bothers me now with this information of there being a witness. Why would it not? We now have a witness on the second floor. The very reason why I played you a person's commentary when they heard their own sorority sister screaming from an apartment below. Now, this is not even a whole house. This is an apartment. And she heard the roommate scream. She heard the dog barking, and she got her ass up to see what the hell was going on. She calls 911. She calls the sorority sister, and they're not even in the same house. They're in separate apartments. Now, listen to me carefully. They are not in the same house. She's in an apartment above her, and she hears screaming and a dog barking and called 911. So how can you logically explain this situation here when you're in the same house below two dead people above you and two dead around the corner from you? Help us understand. And as somebody has said, first you tell us they were sleeping. First you tell us they were on the first floor, the survivors. Now we know one's on the second floor with the dead people. You got to make it make sense. Could it be she just turned a blind eye? Just said the hell with it. I ain't going to worry about it. I'll find out in the morning when I get up. But by then it was too late. 4 people succumbed to the wounds. Could they have been saved? I don't know. Many people have been stabbed many times and survived. So how do I know? I wasn't there. But it's dicey to some of us. And you can't get mad that we're questioning the evidence that you are giving to the public. Because our understanding is that 2 people were on the bottom floor. Now it's one on the same floor with dead people. Hearing noises, doors opening and closing, whimpering, hearing people talk. Come on now. You cannot just make it seem like we should not be judgmental. Hell yeah, I'm going to be judgmental. Because if I know my friends and I know how they talk, I know how they sound, I know when they're happy, when they're sad, I think I would know when something doesn't sound right in this house. And this doesn't sound like a party going on. This sounds like some shenanigans going on. And I'd rather have been safe than sorry. That's right, to each its own. Because when you use the word froze, you're telling people that you feared something at that moment. So this is why many of us are questioning, why not call 911 then? Your house keeps traffic, but something made you freeze when you saw the guy with the mask and the bushy eyebrows. What was it? Because perhaps you knew he was the cause of the noise and the conversation and the whimpering and the crying and the thud. But instead, you either went to sleep or what did you do? Why did he do this to them? News Nation is the source. Former CIA officer gives her explanation. She just spoke the last audio. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
It's great to have you, as always. So since the release of that probable cause affidavit, a lot more details have emerged. Robert outlined some of them. So many of us are still wondering, though, what was the motivation behind these murders? Do you see a possible narrative emerging from some of these newly released details?
You know, I think that's the part that really scares everyone is the motive, right? And I think really to the point of Kaylee's father, when he spoke out talking about how he expected him to look different, right? It's this whole idea of the devil you know, right? Versus the devil you don't know. And he doesn't look like someone who would do this, but, you know, what are you supposed to look like? And I think that's what's scary about the motive is why these students? Why did he do this to them? And my guess, the narrative that I'm just, you know, pulling together based on my own hypotheses is that I do think he came into sort of random contact with one of them. I'm still not certain who. I believe it's Maddie or Kaylee. But I think that contact, he perhaps made more out of that contact than they did, because we have that Uber driver talking about how Kaylee and Maddie really didn't seem like they had a care in the world that evening. And I fully believe that. And so I think this would have been a situation where he would have come into very casual contact, either at a restaurant, at a bar, library, store, wherever. And he made more out of that contact, and then he began to basically stalk them.
Wow, fascinating. So the suspect, Brian Koberger, has not yet entered a plea. The defense received the judge's approval to preserve the crime scene for several more weeks. What is the defense doing now to help build their case?
So I believe that the defense is probably recreating the crime scene. They are examining now this themselves, because law enforcement has really had it right for these 2 months, and they've been able to comb through it. And so basically what law enforcement is trying to do is, based on the information that was in that probable cause affidavit, they are now recreating those events and trying to figure out the holes that they can poke into their theories, and whether or not Koberger was actually capable of doing something like this, and whether or not the witness testimony that they have is actually reliable.
That makes sense. So one of the two surviving roommates, saw the alleged killer walking out of the house that night. How important do you think she'll be to this case going forward?
So that's actually an excellent question, and I don't know it is the answer to that, because my gut says that she saw him. I don't believe that he saw her. And I do believe, look, I was a college student. I was 20 years old once, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, when we came in at 2 o'clock in the morning, she may have been under the influence. She may have been sort of in a dreamlike state. So I don't know how reliable her testimony is actually going to be for either side. So that's actually the kind of wild card right now, because really all she saw was someone that resembled him with the bushy eyebrows, and the defense can go ahead and say, okay, well, you just saw someone that resembled him, not him. But the prosecution can say, well, this person looked very much like Brian Koberger, and then they've matched the shoes to him. If they found his mask, if they found his murder suit, then that would corroborate that testimony.
All right, Tracy Walder, always fascinating. Thank you so much for your insight tonight.
All right, what will happen with her testifying of bushy eyebrows and a mask that only covered the nose and mouth? Will it help? Naturally, they've got a footprint that was at her door, DM. Did he throw away the shoes? They believe it is a Van type shoe. Did he throw away all of his clothing from that morning? Did he keep any of his clothing? Try to wash any of his clothing? Throw them in the bag and just throw them in the corner. Men are like that. Men are usually lazy about washing their clothes. Would he be stupid enough to keep bloody clothes in a bag and throw it in the corner? Possibly. The Van shoes cost. Did he really want to throw them away? How bloody did they get? So you have to ask all those questions. And is there a connection between BK and the surviving roommates? People are asking that. We might as well dissect it. If there's a connection between the killer and the surviving roommates, I would suspect that they will find that out in phone records, apps. Did he like any of the roommates' social media posts? I thought about that this morning, when I was on Kaylee Gonsalves' IG page. I was looking at the people that liked her photographs. There were maybe a few that I would have considered suspect profiles, because naturally you can be whoever you want on social media. And I'm very leery of people who don't have any posts underneath their profile. They're following people, but they don't have any posts. And she had an open IG page. And that's what's dangerous now, having open IG pages and Facebook pages, because anybody can see your posts, see your pictures, your live streams, and like and follow you and obsess over you and come to loathe you all at the same time. And you're sitting up here posting, not thinking that somebody's really not liking you too well, have become angry with you to where they decide to find you, track you down, watch you, and then decide to reach out and touch you, which that is what has believed to have happened in this case with BK and the victims. Was there a specific target? I don't know. But I know he spared two, and that's the spoken word. And it is suspect and odd to many of us, because for him to go through all this trouble of cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, why would you leave two alive? At the title of this video, but before I do that, I'm going to play a psychiatrist's analyzation of the roommate and see if you agree or disagree with what he has to say in this commentary. Once again, News Nation is the source. Thank you for joining me. You're listening to The Fault. Dr. Daniel Bober will be speaking in this commentary.
Of what unfolded in the home that night, including one surviving roommate's alleged run-in with the suspect. We'll read you a portion of the affidavit where the roommate, described as DM, says that she saw a male figure in black clothing and mask. Quote, the male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the backsliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not recognize the male. And joining me now is psychiatrist and former mental health policy fellow in the U.S. Senate, Dr. Daniel Bober. Dr. Bober, the affidavit laying out one of the surviving roommates' accounts of what she heard and saw that night. At one point, she even describes hearing someone say someone's in the house, and later she hears crying. So I want to get to a better understanding of why police were not called right away, because the events I described were frightening enough that the roommate locked herself in the bedroom, but why not call police? Could she have been in shock for that long?
Well, Mitch, they call it fight or flight, but it's actually fight, freeze, or flight. We see this in police officers. We see this in soldiers on the battlefield. It's in the activation of what we call the sympathetic nervous system, and chemicals like adrenaline are released, which prepares your body basically for the fight of its life. And sometimes people can freeze up where they become disconnected from their thoughts and emotions, which is what we call dissociation. So this is a response that can happen in anyone. And a lot of people will say, well, I would react this way or that way, but no one really knows until they're in the situation. So I don't think we can judge too harshly here.
So I understand freezing in the moment when a potential murderer, or at least just a strange man, is in your home after 4 a.m. What I don't quite understand at this time is the police were not called until about noon the next day. That's the information we have. And also the roommates had called other people over because they were concerned about the roommate. So they called friends to come over before they called police. So the state of shock, I'm curious about how long it could possibly last and why they would have called somebody else before they called police.
Well, I don't know that it would last that long, but maybe there's another explanation. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she was in denial about what she was seeing. Maybe, she had been consuming alcohol. There's any number of reasons that she could have delayed it. But obviously, I don't think it was for any nefarious purpose. I just think it was probably her particular response to something that she couldn't believe that she was seeing. It's also possible that maybe she told herself that maybe this is related to one of the other roommates, that someone else is in the home. We just won't really know. There's really no way to ask, unfortunately.
And I know this is a difficult question for you to answer, but it's why we have you on. The alleged killer here killed 4 people and then just walked right past a 5th. I'm curious as to what that indicates about the mental state of the suspect in the situation.
So I believe what you're going to find out is that this killer was stalking a particular individual. And what do we know about stalkers? We know that the risk of violence increases if there's an intimate relationship with them. We know that the risk of violence increases if there's a history of substance use, criminal behavior, unemployment. So I believe that he had contact with one of these victims. Whether it was a casual contact or a more intimate contact, we won't know yet until we find out more information. But I believe there was a single target here, and these people that were there with her were probably just other unfortunate victims.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
All right, everybody. How did he come to choose the victims? Everybody keeps asking that question. What is the motive? Was he angry, rebuffed, mad at looking at happy people if he was chasing them on social media? Killed 4 but left 2 alive. Allegedly, this DM says she saw him. He passed her. So was the door cracked partially, halfway, or she was standing in the doorway? I'm confused. Somebody put on social media that 2 of the roommates got up and found Ethan, I believe, in a common area, living room or hallway, whichever. They were calling 911 and then ran out. One passed out and one was incoherent on the phone. So somebody walked by, wondering what was going on, allegedly grabbed the phone to make the phone call to the dispatch. Other people came through, ended up becoming a crowd, blah, blah, blah. Other people called 911. I do not know what is the truth to that social media information because the police has never verified it and it was not mentioned in the affidavit. We will wait to see what the 911 call has to say and if it bears any similarities to this affidavit. But yes, it is just hard to believe somebody would freeze and think that something's going on and still don't call 911. Because still in your mind, if you know your friends and you know who they're dating, 2 are on the same floor with you. Those 2 date each other. So you didn't think it would be strange, a strange man coming from around that corner? You didn't hear the other girls in the living room. So now you have to really take a deep dive into the setup of a house. The living room is to the right of her room. And when you walk in that living room, you can go around that corner to Xana's room. So Xana and Ethan are together as a couple. Why would this strange guy be coming from around that corner? Because there's no other corner for him to come around except for downstairs, the first floor. And if you didn't know that your friend on the first floor had a boyfriend or dating somebody, wouldn't he go out the front door? Come on, Queen, bring it to him. They ain't ready. Yes, very interesting you said that. A man's voice, not Ethan's. Exactly. She should know what everybody sounds like. It's a very good point. You are friends with these people. You hang with them. You drink with them. You live with them. You go places. You should know their voice even with a door closed. It's no different than you hearing somebody's voice in a crowd. You would say, oh, that's Susie, that's Dick, that's Bob. Very good point. A guy is coming around the corner in the late morning. There's nobody else voices you hear talking, laughing, drinking, playing music. So why would he be coming from the right of the room if indeed that's the direction he was coming from? We do believe, allegedly, they're saying the 2 girls were killed first, so that leaves the option that he was coming from Xana's room after murdering them. You don't see or hear anybody else with him or talking, so what the hell would he be doing coming from that direction? 2, the other direction would be the bottom floor. He came from your other roommate's room. But why come up the stairs when he could go out the front door? Stay woke. Stay woke. And why would he leave you alive? He went out of his way to dump a knife somewhere in Idaho or Washington State that morning. He is pinged out of his jurisdiction. So he's going to leave you alive. Now you hear the psychiatrist saying he does not believe that this girl did anything nefarious by not calling 911. Well, everyone is entitled to his or her opinion, but it does sound fishy because you know a party when you hear one, and a thump here and a thud there and scuffling here, heavy feet rolling across the floor, people being slammed across the floor. Xana died on the floor, so that means he threw her on the floor. You want me to believe he politely stabbed her and then lied her on the floor gently. She was on the floor because she was possibly trying to run, and he grabbed her and threw her down and stabbed her, and she bled out on that wall. Ethan is a big guy. I would assume that Ethan would give a good fight to this man as to preserve his life. So you want me to believe these 2 were not ruffling and scuffling in a bed, something turning over, a lamp, a soda pop can, cup, something. When you hear some type of conversation, ruffling, mumbling, stop. Why are you doing this? You want me to believe that these people were quiet while this man is gutting them with a knife? I can't believe that. And even the commentary I brought you earlier of a woman who was stabbed at UCLA, her sorority sister heard her screaming through the floor, and she lived above the victim. So now you want me to believe in this story, which, yes, they are different. These people are in the same house, and nobody hears nothing to say, damn, this don't sound right. What the hell's going on up there? Because let me tell you something. If you're cool with your friends, you would have came on out, more than likely. This don't sound right. Even if that means you would have got killed by the killer, you would have came out because that's your house. You live there. Now, could it be that she was just drunk, curious, going to the door drunk, peeping out, keep jumping back up? But if you are drunk, that's even more crazy. Who's drunk jumping up to the door 3 times at 4 a.m.? See, you have to dissect all of the information to make it make sense. Would a drunk, inebriated person get up 3 times in the night to keep opening the door to look out? Three times inebriated is a long time to keep getting up to go to a door. I think most drunk people would just lie down and stay asleep. What do you say? What says you? Say you, the viewing audience. Would you get up 3 times? Here's the story that is the title of my video, the UCLA dorm murder versus the Idaho 4 Slayings. You be the judge of the said information.
Andrea Delvesco, I should say, was found in her burning apartment about a week ago. CBS 2's Cara Finstrom has the very latest on the 2 arrests, and she is live in Westwood this morning. Cara?
Well, the DA's office is expected to schedule those court appearances very soon. Students we spoke with here on the block where that 21-year-old lived tell us they are anxious to learn about what the investigators have uncovered.
It was terrifying to hear that someone died.
Robert Dumas is helping his son move into the apartments right next door to where Andrea Delvesco's body was found last week. Today, this campus is learning about the arrest of 2 murder suspects and expressing relief.
Finally, like, something's happening, and there was a lot of information out, so now it's like a little more that we know.
But there's also a disturbed disbelief. One of UCLA's own, biology major Eric Marquez, is suspected in the murder. He was arrested near his Westwood apartment. Also under arrest is Albert Medina. He's a 22-year-old from Fresno State University. Both suspects are from the town of McFarland in the San Joaquin Valley. Detectives have not yet released whether Delvesco knew the 2, how she died, or if she was killed with the fire set afterwards. She was studying Spanish and psychology and entering her 4th year at UCLA. Her parents are now speaking out from their home in Texas about their loss.
She affected so many people in so many positive ways that I'm just beginning to understand.
From the day she was born, we knew that she was an angel on earth.
We've also learned Delvesco had been facing drug-related charges. She was scheduled to be in court next week after pleading not guilty to possessing ecstasy, LSD, and methamphetamine. Police have not said whether they believe drugs were involved in her death or discussed a possible motive. Michael Dumas hopes investigators find the answers they need. He's been reassured by reports of extra patrols in the area.
At night, I guess there's more of a police presence just to keep everyone feeling safe around the neighborhood.
Investigators say forensic evidence found here at the scene and also witness accounts link those 2 suspects to the death. Rick?
Thanks, Cara. Check.
All right, everybody. That's a story out of California that came to fruition many years ago. I play that information because it just goes to show that This girl left her balcony door open, Andrea. The perpetrator climbed over the balcony, opened the door, came in to sexually assault her, stabbed her 19 times. She was a student at UCLA studying psychology. Her roommate, or let's just say her sorority mate, heard her screaming through the floor. The roommate, I want to say roommate, the sorority sister lived above her in the apartment above her. She heard her screaming and the dog barking. She had a girl dog. She yelled out, called her phone, no answer, alerted other girls in the apartment, called 911. Please go back to the beginning of this video to hear her testimony. Somebody called 911. She ran out, got a view of a red car speeding away from the crime scene. And he had fraternity letters on the back. The suspect ended up being a guy visiting from, I believe it was Fresno State or somewhere, visiting his friend who lived across the street, who was also a UCLA student. The one across the street got a short prison term for aiding and abetting, stolen property, so on and so forth. The perpetrator is currently doing life in prison for killing this young girl. Why did he kill her? What was it about her that made him decide to kill her? They had also robbed a neighbor across the street. So were they just on a drunk binge wanting to get into trouble and do stuff? They didn't find any evidence that the guy across the street, who was the UCLA student, had anything to do with the rape or attempted rape of the girl or breaking into her apartment. But he was with him coming out on surveillance camera with a red blanket over him that belonged to the victim. It's just very crazy. Well, you have every right to ask questions because it's information that's been brought forward. You can't tell people not to ask questions because somebody allegedly survived a killer, mass murderer, serial killer. We have every right to ask questions because nobody ever confirmed that 911 call that was put out. So I'm going to ask you all here today, who made the 911 call from one of the survivors' phone? Who was the person that put the message out that they found one of the kids' body and ran out after calling 911? One passed out and one was too hysterical to speak. See, that's never been confirmed. That's the truth. And it was not mentioned in the affidavit. So you have every right to ask. And that's the part of the affidavit I didn't see. So what happened when DM and BF got up November 13th? Who contacted whom first? Did she contact BF through the night when all this door opening and closing was going on? Hey, Bethany, there's something going on up here. Hey, I just seen this strange guy walk by with bushy eyebrows and a COVID mask on. What's he doing coming from Ethan and Xana's room? Was he coming from your room? Did you have a hookup? No. Oh my God, then what is he doing in his house? This is why I played you the information from the UCLA crime versus this Idaho 4 Slayings. In that case in California, the girls got involved, Johnny on the spot. They heard noise, they heard screaming, they heard a dog barking, they knew something didn't sound right in the late morning, and they called the victim and she did not answer the phone. So the girl got up to inquire, and this is where she sees the suspect running away in the car. And then the apartment is set on fire to cover up the brutal slaying. He sets the apartment on fire while the police are outside inquiring about the 911 call. I brought this to you to compare the two to show you that no, everybody does not behave the same. That somebody said This don't sound right. She's screaming. The dog is barking, and the dog didn't normally bark. So for those of you who like to go on and on about that dog, so then we ask that question now. Did the dog bark excessively? And did anybody notice that the dog usually barks or doesn't bark? How about that? Because that's on the neighbor's audio of their surveillance. A whimpering, a thud, and a dog barking. Checkmate. You're right. We all don't behave the same. We hear people fussing and fighting in neighbors' apartments, condos, houses, and we don't just jump up and call 911 because we see people actually standing in the yard arguing. Two people standing outside fighting. You use your discretion if you want to get involved or not. You may call the police, but you don't say anything. You may hear a scream at 3 a.m., but you don't get up to inquire. And that's what I told somebody that I know of pertaining to a case in Anderson County where a woman was heard screaming in an apartment where she was held hostage and beat to death and brutalized and chopped up and put in plastic bags under the perpetrator's bed. And the people across the walk said, I did hear a scream, but I didn't think no more about it. And then I talked to the neighbor personally, who said, yeah, I was hearing thumping against the wall. I said, well, did you call 911? No. Did you bang on the wall? No. So now we have two people hearing noises and screams, and nobody did anything. And now this lady is dead. The police came to the house to inquire about her disappearance. And they played dumb, the older man and the younger woman, who both murdered the young lady. The next day, they come back on a Thursday morning with a search warrant to find a dead person thawing out under the bed in plastic bags. She was kept for many months in a stand-up freezer, frozen to death. Do you get involved or not? Should you get involved or not? What have I always said at the end of my videos before I change this network's name? If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Now, Mr. Gonsalves has spoken in a very diplomatic way pertaining to witness DM, which is kind of surprising to me considering how negative he's been during this investigation of the Moscow Police Department. But you see, that one time you hear something, you just may save a life. I understand that people do not like to get involved as to preserve their own safety. But this girl lives right in between the victims, from floor to floor. We heard that the floor creaks from a last tenant, previous tenant. And you want me to believe this man is killing these people and ain't nobody making no damn noise? Is he heavy-footed? What will be sickening if we find out she did come out of that room and see those dead people and knew she couldn't call because of maybe she felt like they would have questioned her saying, well, how could you not have heard anything? Especially if the room was in disarray. Well, ma'am, how could you not hear this lamp fall down? And yes, I understand young people are oblivious to things. That is the very reason why many young people are caught up in drama, because they don't pay attention. They do not pay attention. They go anywhere with people. They talk to anybody, get in different people's cars, go in different people's homes, houses, have anybody come in their house, spend the night. And that is why they have a lot of drama in their lives, young people, because of poor decisions. And we all are imperfect, let me say. We all can get in the wrong car. We all can catch a ride with the wrong person. We all can invite the wrong person over. We all can go anywhere and get in harm's way. This is why you have to pick and choose the company you keep. You have to make sure that wherever you're visiting, they lock doors, lock windows. You keep your doors and windows locked. Because despite the storyline, how in the hell did this guy get in this house? Whether he was stalking them or not, you can't explain how the fuck he got in there. You look at the drone footage from these news broadcasts, and they give you an area view that is quite scary to show you how a person could lie in wait and watch. So for months, if he was watching when the foliage was on the trees, they wouldn't have probably paid attention to see him just standing there in the woods looking. Now that's scary. Drinking, smoking, laughing, and you've got somebody standing right there in the fucking woods watching you. You ain't even paying attention to see. Because at some point, he had to have gotten a closer look. If he didn't, Lord have mercy. Did he climb up the back way and watch? Or did he just park somewhere on the street and look at the house? And you mean to tell me not one person ever noticed this car, it being suspicious, going up and down the street? Because he watched the house during the day, from my understanding. One incident they said was at night. That was after 10 p.m. So why wasn't he at school, teaching, working? Who has this kind of time to drive 15 minutes away, 11 minutes, to sit outside somebody's house to stop them? How long did he stay each time he watched the house, drove by? Nobody noticed this white Elantra ever parking near the house, in front of the house, across the street. This is why you have to pay attention. Because anybody living over there could have been a stalker, voyeur. You're right close together. All you need is some nice binoculars, a telescope. Sit back with a nice beer, drink, and just watch endlessly. Young people laughing and talking and enjoying themselves. This is a sick story. And it won't be the last, unfortunately. There will be another story of somebody being watched, stalked, followed. Because you don't know people. Nobody knew this guy. Awkward, nerdy, narcissist, know-it-all, smart-ass, egotistical, violent. And yet nobody knew that one day he would drive to Washington State, attend the PhD program, and be stalking people in the meanwhile while going to school. People can follow you, Vapor, without knowing you, without anybody helping. People are stalked every day and watched and gawked at. You don't have to know anybody in the house personally. Our houses are broken into every day. People pick and choose houses just because of the way it looks. They don't know the people inside, but it's a nice looking house. Looks like they got some money, so we break in the story. You have to stop trying to put a reason behind why people do what they do. Because a lot of times people commit crimes, they say they don't even know why they did it. But I got a feeling this one knows. And let's talk about Bethany. She's on the bottom floor. Which room was she under? Was she under Xana's room? Then she would have to have heard the altercation of the two decedents in that room. And we know noise echoes more at night when people are quiet. Checkmate. The queen ain't dumb. I'm a lot of things and dumb ain't it. You see, the quieter the room, the louder the noise is going to be. You got people moving about, talking and laughing, TV's blaring, radio's blaring. Something could be going on and nobody knows. But when the house is quiet and they're not really making a lot of noise, I think if two people are arguing, fussing, and slashing around with a knife, I think you might kind of hear that. Because somebody laid on the floor dead, and that was Xana Kernodle. You want me to believe nobody heard her hit that floor. Ethan, 6364. We don't know if they slammed into a wall, put a hole in a wall fighting. You're talking about two men. And somebody says a few fought back. So was anything knocked over in the rooms upstairs and on the second floor, Xana's room? Anything fall off the wall? Pictures get knocked off the wall. You hear your friend whimpering. You don't ask why. Did this girl text any of the victims' telephones? Because what would be disturbing if we find out in court she never texted one roommate to see what was going on. But if she texted the one on the bottom, who we believe is possibly her ace in the hole, that would be even more disturbing. That she contacted Bethany and not talked to the other decedents or tried to make contact with them. And did Bethany get up hearing anything suspicious, or she slept all through the morning? What time did Bethany go to bed? How did the two meet up the next morning to allegedly find these people deceased? Who found whom? And is it normal to go up to one of the kids' room to see what they got going on? I don't know. I don't know these kids. I don't know their friendships, their dispositions, how they navigated as friends in the house. Why would I think the leaked audio is not real? It had to come from somebody's security camera. Come on, you guys, stay woke. I told you that house was going to be instrument in this investigation because somebody said they had video footage of the girls coming home. That was somebody's doorbell camera. I got a feeling it's the house sitting right across from the driveway. They told you the audio is 50 feet from Xana's room. That's the house to the left. Why would you have audio without video? Very scary. If you want to come up here and chop it up with the Queen, the link has been dropped in the chat for you to give your public opinion pertaining to this investigation. The comparisons of the UCLA dorm murder versus the Idaho 4 slayings. Several years ago, a woman was being brutally attacked in her apartment, and her sorority sister heard her scream and heard her dog barking, and she called 911. She called the victim's phone. Idaho 4 slayings, nobody calls the police. Nobody calls the damn roommates from our understanding. Now, if we find out later, I stand corrected. But for the meanwhile, no information has been released that this DM called the roommate's number or a BF called any roommates, except for 7 hours or so later. You see, it is brazen to go up in somebody's house. Absolutely brazen. Mimi, where you calling from? Hello? Take the mic off, dear.
Calling from North Texas.
What do you have to say about this UCLA dorm murder versus the Idaho 4 slayings, ma'am?
Well, I thought that was a very interesting comparison that you brought, and I was very glad that you did that, because it does show that it is possible to be faced with something that's odd and off and actually take action over it.
What I want to ask you this. They say we shouldn't put ourselves in their situation, but if I'm not an imminent threat, it's no situation for me to compare to put into. So let me ask you something. You hear something going on, whimpering, dog barking, playing, that's no big deal. But then you hear somebody say they're here. Then you hear somebody whimpering. So let's focus on the whimpering, because that's more serious. Right. You hear somebody whimpering. You're opening the door 3 times. What is your assertion to you?
And
let's just say you've been drinking as well.
I don't care if I'm high or drinking or whatever. That if you're opening your door 3 times in such a short span, you know something is not right. You call up to one of your friends, call down to one of the friends, text somebody, call 911.
Do you think she texted one of them?
No, I don't.
Do you think she texted Bethany?
No, I don't think she did anything.
So what did she do? So what did she do for 7 hours?
I have no earthly idea. I don't know if she was in the river denial. I don't know if she was scared and then passed out. And then when she finally came to, she was still afraid to find out if something had happened because it was so quiet in the house. I can't imagine, though. Even as an adult.
Not whispering, whimpering.
Yes.
Somebody, the word is not whispering, whimpering, like you whimp when you cry.
Right. I can't imagine if somebody's in my house and I hear something's going on, I'm like, are you okay? Can I do something for you? Or, it's just not that uncharacteristic to say, hey, what's going on?
You're fine.
Why is your dog barking at 4 o'clock when nothing else is going on? We're not having a party. There's not people coming in and out.
But that's the point. Is she the type to tell somebody, hey, the dog is bothering me, your dog barking? I think the dog barking wasn't her playing with the dog, but she said she heard her voice up there. Like she was playing with the dog. Maybe she was. I don't know.
No, she wasn't playing with the dog. She was getting killed, and the dog was not very happy about it.
Okay. Well, I thought I have to reread the affidavit again to see if she was saying that she heard her voice up there.
My only other thought, and I saw Zarp in your chat mention it.
Yeah, they're here now.
Maybe, just maybe, BK was jealous of Ethan.
Okay, I saw that.
So that's something maybe that's the connection. How does Ethan get to go?
Well, I think he has a habit. I don't think he likes women. So you can weigh it how you want. He has an issue with the girls. It's not to say he wasn't jealous of Ethan. It's not to say he wasn't jealous of the girls. He's jealous of them too because, one, they're pretty, they're attractive, they're having fun all the time. They're always posting pictures. And it's sickened me this morning to get up and look at her IG page and to see that she posted that picture one day before her death. And I was like, oh, that's why they keep showing this picture all the time. It's sickening.
Yeah.
But she took some very nice pictures. She's a nice looking girl, Kaylee.
Right.
They're all pretty nice looking kids. But when you don't like yourself, you're going to have a problem looking at other people happy, period. It doesn't even have to be looking at the photos. That's just something new we're doing now because of social media. But when there was no photo taking and you're just seeing people out at the grocery store, a party, you're looking at how she looks and how they walk and talk and how they carry themselves. you could be envious of these people walking by you. They look well put together. You hear they got a great job. They've got a nice guy or girl on their arm. You might hear they got a little money, and you can become just envious because it's like, damn, why I don't have these things? Why don't I have this life? Why don't I look like her? Why don't I have pretty hair, pretty skin, nice shape, big butt, big boobs? You know, you just go on and on down the list. And you got this guy who obviously he didn't know how to navigate with people in general. Because I read some posts and they're saying it's really not him that made this post maybe back in 2011. But when you read the post, the person sounds so lonely and just detached from reality. And I thought, well, even if he didn't post it and he was posting it to say he's in agreement with it, it's still sad nonetheless. Because that's the part of him that you can only have empathy for. It's the old Brian. The Brian that possibly was miserable and unhappy, and the fat kid that got teased and trying his best to fit in and be nice and nobody's reciprocating. That would be a very lonely life.
Agree.
And I've always been a tall girl, heavy girl, but I've never had problems mingling with people because I am who I am. Is it to say that somebody couldn't have teased or made fun of me in high school? Of course. But the point is, I didn't have those issues by the grace of God. So I don't know what that's like to, feel just ho-hum down. It's not saying I had the best exuberance in high school, but it's saying I wasn't somewhere wanting to, slit my wrist. There are things that could have been better naturally, but that would be a terrible existence coming up in school, in high school, when that should be your happiest time. And you're not happy. You're angry. You're mad. You're bitter. You're wanting to talk to people. You wanting people to like you. You wanting to fit in. You wanting people to call you and say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You want to go to that party, or we're going to the movies? Do you know how lonely that would be for nobody to call you and ask you to go anywhere and do anything? It would be terrible. Now imagine he's grown and nobody's doing that. He's 28. He's almost 30. And nobody's reaching out. Hey, let's go get a beer. Hey, let's go to the movies. Hey, we're having a function. He had to be lonely as hell. But that was on him to not try to navigate in the world. Maybe he should have been more of a listener than a talker.
Right.
Listen to what the people are saying. Watch how the people act. And then respond. I don't think he ever learned that.
I do have a question, and I've not seen it anywhere. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
But was he in school before, like in Pennsylvania, before he went to Washington? Or
Yeah. He did a master's program at the sales. Yeah.
Okay.
He just got there. My understanding, he just got there in August. Some keep differentiating August, June. And then they say the girls just moved in the house in June. I don't really know. One article says, news broadcast says August. Somebody else is saying the pings are coming from June. But I didn't really gather that in the affidavit that his pings were coming from June. So I don't really know.
Well, thank you for letting me come up. And thank you for your
Well, let me
time
ask you
today.
something.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Before you head out. Do you think any of the girls in the house that are remaining are involved in this crime?
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
Okay.
I would hate to think so. But stranger things have happened. I don't know. I mean, like, what was the other girl doing? I mean, like, what's her story?
The one on the bottom, Bethany.
Yeah, what's her statement?
Well, see, don't you find it interesting? They both have been quiet because they were the remaining ones. So they knew not to say anything. And naturally, the police probably told them to be quiet. Don't say anything. And then two, they didn't need to say anything because the killer was still on the loose. So that would have been foolish. But who knew at the time that one saw the killer? That just puts a whole different spin on the situation. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's the one thing to me. I can't get over the fact if she saw him enough to see his eyebrows, how is he going towards the sliding glass door?
Because he's coming from Xana's room and she's peeping out or in the doorway. and then she sees him because he's got to pass her door to step into the kitchen. See, her door is by the staircase going upstairs, and then he's got to come from the right, step in that hallway, and then step into the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. That's what didn't make
Just
sense
take
to
the
me.
just take the virtual tour that's in my library. You'll see how it's laid out.
All right, sweetheart. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, well, you're rushing off.
Oh, no. My cat's meowing at the back, and my dog is ringing the bell to go outside. So I didn't want.
Damn, your dog. Can your dog talk?
I wish. Well, he thinks he can. I don't know.
Okay, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, honey.
Okay, bye-bye. That's Angry Mimi. Someone has to be involved. I was wondering about the other girl, too. What is Bethany doing all this time? I don't know. Sleep, I guess. I think we will learn more about what witness in the 911 call later on. Passed 1 foot of her. Yes, her name is Dylan. I try not to say her name, their names. Very interesting. Hit the link if you want to give your opinion pertaining to this case, the comparisons between the UCLA dorm murder versus the Idaho 4 slayings. In the UCLA case, somebody called 911 to render aid. Although it was too late, she had already died from her stab wounds and her apartment set on fire. But at least her sorority member called because she heard her screaming and she heard her dog barking. I brought you this information to show you that everyone does not behave the same. And indeed, it is easy to say what you would and would not do. But in this case, somebody was screaming. So that means she heard the scream in the AM. She lived above the person who was screaming, her sorority sister. Maybe no one was screaming in this house, but I still would find that hard to believe. That nobody screamed. Because if they were up, then why would they not scream? Because you have to try to figure out where the beds were positioned in the room. I don't know. If she opened it a crack, she'd be able to see him in full, but he didn't see her or didn't know what was on the other side of the door. Well, Justice, he had to have known that was a bedroom because all the rooms they're situated the same. They're not different. He knew it was a bedroom. Well, the only way she would have seen Xana being killed is if she was standing in her room or her doorway watching her be murdered. There's no other way around that, I don't think. Was there another roommate besides D&D on the first floor? I thought I heard there was, I don't know. Law enforcement might be building a case against D. Could be. Hello.
Hello, Queen.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Trying to you've made me think of some things that I had forgotten about, and I'm just wondering if it could be possible of, is this girl dissociating this bad, or is it some type of bystander effect, or the reason being, I just happen to, with you make people think, and you've brought up to my memory of 2 research papers I had to do, and one was called the Good Samaritan study. It was in Princeton,
Mm-hmm.
and it was involved seminary students, and most of the way they set up the study, they told the seminary students that they had to have a meeting at a certain time. And in between that, they put a person in distress. I believe it was a woman. And the majority of them, and they were seminary students, walked by the woman because they put their meeting and their studies ahead of the woman that was in distress.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is Kitty Genevieve's research. Her last name's Genovese. And if you Google it, it kind of gives you a like a snapshot of what happened. It was in 1964 where she was stabbed to death. I believe it was in the street or near the street. And there were apartments surrounding on both sides of the street where 38 neighbors failed to intervene. Or did this girl, which I have been in these bad cases of dissociation, I suffer from PTSD, and I'm trying to, oh dear. We don't know what this girl, I believe she did hear it all. I believe she was freaked out, and when she saw those bushy eyes, and there's God untelling what his clothing looked like. When she shut that door for the last time after seeing him, did she go into a total state? Because after the death of my mother, I found her in my son's room, and afterwards, she was deceased. And after her death, I mean, I went into a state that I would sit here for hours and just stare out at the wall. And at the time, my son was really young, and it scared me. I was like, I'd come out of it and think, oh my God, how long have I been like this? And not even know how long I had been like that. And also, I know the Genevieve's case, it talks about a bystander effect. Okay, the second example. About 4 years ago, my neighbor, I heard a woman screaming, "Oh God, help me, somebody please help me," just screaming her head off. And I also have physical things, so I got in my vehicle, went over there as fast as I could. Here she was over her boyfriend's body. He had been run over by a truck. She was on the phone with 911. And right away, I just didn't think. I reacted. I could tell by looking at him, he was gone. But instead, just to reassure her, because she was out of her
Let me
mind.
address somebody in here. Annette, nobody said anything that Ethan was screaming. That is not what was said in the affidavit. That was not said in the affidavit that anybody was screaming. It said our audio was distorted of a whimpering and a thud. It did not say somebody was screaming. That's not true. If somebody was screaming, that's not what was said in the affidavit.
Right, and with her,
and hold on, and it does not say that she heard anybody screaming.
Right. But the point being is, she
let
had
me say something to you all, because you all are starting to annoy me.
I'm sorry, hon.
You should know the police went and verified the audio. You're not even paying attention to the information. You don't think the police went and verified the audio from the person's house? Did it occur to you that the audio would also have a fucking surveillance camera attached to it? Come on, you guys, stop being stupid now. You're still not listening. The audio would be verified by the police and the FBI before they would even put it in the affidavit. Just like everything else they verified with pings, data, surveying, following the suspect. You want me to sit here and believe they didn't verify the audio from the neighbor's house? Why would they not verify it? That's their job. We are not talking about the scream that guy mentioned in that video. We're talking about the house that's 50 feet away. So somebody had to have possibly video and audio. And they would verify it before putting it in an affidavit. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, sweetie. The point being, I did get 911 to say, hey, he's gone. They tried to tell me, oh, can you give him? I said, no, honey, he's gone. The point being, I mean, within stepping distance, because they're across the street neighbors, they were outside, and instead of coming to which they could have made a few steps and been right there to the scene, right there helping that woman. They just didn't want to get involved. I don't know what their situation. I mean, anybody you would think hearing a woman screaming, "Oh God, please, somebody help me," you'd go. That would be your natural instinct. But I guess for some, it isn't. And another point, I'm a poor person, so I don't have real wood doors on my like my bedroom doors. Not like a metal door or a solid wood door on the outside, outside doors. I believe she possibly did. I'm not trying to make excuses for her. Why? I believe she did hear the commotion between Ethan and Xana. And I originally thought, well, both the other two surviving were incapacitated and just slept through it, but that don't seem the case here with her on the same floor. I believe that's why she opened.
Do you believe that any of the survivors are involved with the suspect?
That would be a hard one with, not having any kind of electronic, not knowing, But it is strange that she didn't, she had to have some kind of friendship or something with these other girls. Why didn't she at least call 911?
We hope she did.
Yeah, I hope she did.
So if she was inebriated, you just have to say she was the type that was drunk that would open and close doors.
No,
only way I can look at it. Or she didn't care.
Yeah, that could be too. Now, on the case with my mom, I had took a Xanax the night before. And I'd say a couple hours after, maybe an hour, and I had to go through a situation because I felt guilty over it. I thought I heard a thump that night because I found her in my son's bedroom on the floor. And I didn't go. I didn't get up. And then I've blamed myself for a long period afterwards. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and go and try to get out of bed and run to go help her and think, oh no, she's gone, but then I blame myself. I heard that thud. And
36, what do you mean she wasn't a threat to him? Obviously none of them were a threat to him. How about that?
I think that too. I believe he knew that all 4 of his victims, I believe he watched them that much. He knew they were an easy target.
That audio that everybody else is playing is not real. It's not real.
But I thought I'd just give you those 2 cases because it shocked me too. I just remembered it that in that Kitty Genevieve's, you think at least a man or one of those neighbors.
Perhaps she didn't check on her roommates because she already knew the outcome. Well, that's the point. If we're to believe that this girl has I don't know. It would be a
That could
shame
be.
to find out she had something to do with Koi Burger, or just say she got up and peeped out and looked and saw they were dead and decided, well, I'll just wait because maybe they'll think something about me waiting so long. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. Just seems strange to me. Very strange. I don't know. Somebody said she had a lawyer. I'm not really sure, dear. For the last time, the audio that is in the affidavit is coming from 50 feet from the house. Common sense would tell you the police has verified the audio. You all are speaking of something else that was made up. I doubt it is the same audio coming from the neighbor. Because that guy is talking about a scream, and at first he went to Facebook and said he didn't hear anything. So I don't know what you all are talking about. I don't think it's the same content.
And it makes you...
If it's the same audio that Ikamel was talking about, yes, I believe it was debunked.
And y'all, if that doorbell thing got it from 50 feet, you know, she had to have, and I don't believe she was totally incapacitated. She had heard all.
You can be incapacitated because you're opening and closing doors.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
If you're incapacitated, you wouldn't be able to get up.
Right. So she had all her senses to her, so I believe she did hear it all.
And where do you live? The Midwest?
No, in Kentucky. I'm your neighbor.
Okay. It's very strange information here. Dylan is more than likely the state's star witness. I'm hoping she does not get to hear people making all type of assumptions about her. Well, Lola C. Kim, I can say whatever the fuck I want to say. This is my channel. How about that? If you don't want someone talking about you, then tough. That's life. They released the information, and that's the bottom line. It is what it is. You can't tell somebody how to think. Just like you all want to tell us what we shouldn't think about how she reacted. Well, then you can't tell me how to think about how she reacted. That is the very reason why I played you content, to show you that somebody else reacted differently than she allegedly reacted. That there are some people who go into survival mode and think something's wrong and they call 911. Which is what happened in the UCLA crime. The girl heard the girl screaming and the dog barking. She called 911. And she didn't even live in the same house. She was in an apartment above. So you're talking about being separated by possibly concrete stairs and doors and iron versus being in the same house and 4 people are being killed, and you want me to logically believe he just came in like a thief in the night and quietly killed all these people. Well, we know that now most of these people were up. So they probably were screaming. You could best believe out of 4, 1 screamed. And that moaning and groaning was probably Xana and Ethan both crying and moaning because they were in pain from being stabbed.
Do you believe that video after you've heard him in court? Now, do you believe even more so that video of him trying
I know enough that one of them screamed. I bet you that. You can best believe 1 out of 4 screamed.
Right, and if there was defensive wounds, there
She's
had
up.
to be something.
Xana's up ordering food and on TikTok at 4:12. If he's gone by 4:20, that means she had to fallen asleep under 4:12 to 4:24, 25. And the audio from the neighbor's video, obviously, somebody is whimpering. So that means they heard it through the wall. So how am I going to hear something through the wall? My camera is picking up somebody crying, and you're in the house with the crying.
Mm-hmm.
Man, miss me with that bullshit. Yolanda, please refrain from the language now. That's what makes the case worse, is knowing somebody was on the floor with 2 people crying out, and somebody's house picked up audio from inside of the house. So you can't sit here and just say she didn't know anything because she's up opening and closing doors. And she's sitting here putting herself at the scene that the man walked by her. So that means you're up. Anybody with some sense would have never said nothing. You don't think somebody's not going to judge you for being up, opening and closing doors while 4 people have been bludgeoned to death? Come on now. Let's just call a spade a spade. It may seem mean, yes, but you're up. You are visibly up. Incapacitated, drunk. You can't be drunk and up and incapacitated at the same time. It doesn't work. You're either up or you're not.
Yeah.
You're either asleep or you're not. But you ain't up opening and closing doors. She was opening and closing doors while the man is killing her friends. You think he ain't hear the door opening and closing? He probably was in a, frenzy state. But there's just something off with this story. And it could just be she opened and closed the doors, heard something, saw him, shut the door, locked it, and she went back to sleep. In the story. But you can't tell me how I should think about what you just told me in an affidavit. I'm entitled to my opinion. Exactly. She was up and awake while the murders happened. Thank you. That's obvious. She told that. Nobody made that up. Nobody made up she was up. She told that to the detectives. That was her doing. She didn't have to tell anybody she was up. She could have lied and just said, I didn't hear anything. So you can't now be on the second floor where 2 people died. Audio has been given to the police that whimpering and somebody's crying on it, and then say, well, how the house next door is picking up the fucking sound, but you ain't picking up the sound inside and you're in the house with the people. And it ain't but 2 of you on the floor. So if it ain't nobody else on the floor making noise or playing loud music, come on, use deduction. You said, I woke up because I heard Kaylee and the dog. So you've opened the door 3 times and heard all this talking and whispering and whimpering. So all that shit she was hearing was the killer killing her friends. So you can interpret it how you want to interpret it. But nobody's going to tell the queen how to think. I don't know, Don. The shit just don't sound right. And it could be nothing. It just don't sound right. That's the point. It may be nothing, but it just don't sound right. That's the point. Because I'm trying to imagine right now. hearing crazy stuff in my own house, and I know me. There's no way anybody's going to walk by my fucking door. I don't know, in my house, and no matter if I have friends living here, staying here, somebody crazy coming through the night, and I'm looking, and I know I was hearing crazy stuff beforehand. Hell yeah, I'm going to start texting folks' telephone numbers, see who the hell answers. Why would I not? Yes, it could be that Kim, she didn't care too much for them. And I'm not trying to put any words in her mouth or in her head who she is as a person. But just like you don't know those kids, you don't know those roommates, you don't know Koiberger. To me, they're all in the same situation. We don't know any of these people. They are random strangers to us. And a random stranger sought out these kids, a target, and he made his move. He went in a house. He killed those kids. He allegedly let 2 live. That's the end of the story until they bring us something else. But for right now, something stinks. And that's my opinion. And it may be absolutely nothing, but it sounds fucking crazy. And I don't care what anybody says. This shit sounds like a fucking scary movie. Like I said before. If I didn't know any better, hell yeah, I would think this was staged. Because it sounds crazy. People walking out, running out, falling out and shit. And then this person's going to social media to say, oh, don't say anything. Oh, they couldn't talk and the other one passed out. And yet none of that's been verified with an affidavit.
Why didn't she just dial 111 and they would have her address and say help? I mean, you can even say help, whisper it.
Thank you, Leanna. Well said. The house they were in can't be so soundproof that a victim has bled so much it came to the outside wall. Amen. Thank you. And I thought that when I saw the blood, and I said, that can't be blood coming out of that wall. That's the first thing I said to myself. How is blood leaking out through the wall? I said, dear God, the person must have been laying up against the wall or the floor for hours.
Yeah, and bled out.
Exactly. She bled out.
And she's going to really feel bad if, I know they'll have.
That they could have lived. I just saw a story recently where a woman was stabbed damn near 32 times and she lived.
Yep.
So each case is not the same being stabbed.
Right. And she'll have, what's that, survivor's guilt or whatever,
There's
like
people
I did.
I brought you a story of somebody I know right now, that my friend who was shot by her husband. He shot her, 4 times? Well, she's alive.
Yeah.
She's alive. Yeah. Because somebody got, either she, the baby, whoever got help, called 911. This story stinks, man.
Yeah, something's not adding up. Even in my dissociative states, I still could hear. I could still know what was going on around me. I think I could have possibly, if something did happen, at least pick up the phone and dial 911.
If you need verifications of what happened allegedly, I would tell you to refer yourself to the affidavit. All the said information is in the affidavit of who was where and who was found where inside of 1122 King Road. I'm going to read you information pertaining latest developments, because I see I'm talking to myself. Because nobody listens to anything you say. I think some of you might need to call the police department. You got a problem with their information. That might be who you need to call. Call Chief Fry. Okay. The 28-year-old grad student was reportedly somewhat quiet and struggled with obesity and drug use in the past. Recently released court documents provide further detail to the picture. An affidavit reveals that Mr. Kroiberger was tied to the murders of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Carnotto, and Ethan Chapin after his DNA was found on a knife sheath the killer left at the scene. Cell phone data also shows Mr. Kroiberger appears to have stalked the home at least 12 times in the run-up to the November 13th attack, and that he returned to the scene of the crime around 5 hours after the stabbing frenzy. For the first time, it emerged that one of the two surviving roommates overheard his chilling final words to the victims. "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Dylan Mortensen told police she saw an intruder in the Moscow home at 4 a.m. but didn't call 911 for another 8 hours. A lawyer for the Gonsalves family told Fox News Miss Mortensen had been scared to death, and rightly so. Meanwhile, criminology classmates of Mr. Kroiberger told the Idaho Statements he would become silent when the murders were raised in class. The grieving parents of one of the slain Idaho students have called for the death penalty for the man accused of stabbing her and her 3 friends to death in a brutal knife attack. Kaylee Gonsalves' parents, Steve and Christy Gonsalves, spoke to News Nation on Thursday night, just hours after they came face to face with their daughter's accused killer, Brian Kohlberger, for the first time in court in Idaho. Mr. Gonsalves said that justice for his daughter would mean the death penalty for 28-year-old criminology PhD student, saying that he has to pay for what he allegedly did to Gonsalves, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. "If you want to play God's role, you're going to have to go answer to him," he said. The devastated father said that he will eventually forgive his daughter's killer, but said that life in prison is not enough for his alleged crimes. Brian Kohlberger faces the death penalty or life in prison for the murders of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. For nearly 8 weeks, the families of 4 slain University of Idaho students have waited in agony for answers about the unspeakable killings. Hope of finally getting some clarity finally came last week with an arrest. Mr. Kohlberger, 28-year-old PhD student, Washington State University. Days later, the probable cause affidavit outlining what led authorities to charge Mr. Kohlberger was made public. Among the revelations in the 18-page document is that Mr. Kohlberger's DNA was found on a knife sheath that the killer left behind at the crime scene. The tanned leather K-bar knife sheath, which featured the United States Marine Corps symbol, was discovered on Mogan's bed next to her butchered body. Mr. Kohlberger's DNA was found on the sheath, with investigators able to trace it to him by matching it to DNA found on trash recovered from his family home in Albright, Pennsylvania, the affidavit states. Mr. Kohlberger was also linked to the murders through his white Hyundai Elantra and through cell phone data. But along with all of the new information outlined in the bombshell document came even more questions. Here they are. Why did the surviving roommate wait 8 hours to call 911 after seeing the killer? Who was the intended target? Is Brian Kohlberger the stalker Kaylee Gonsalves complained about? Rachel Sharp reports on the questions still unanswered in the case. 4 years before the vicious murders of the 4 University of Idaho students, the man now charged with taking their lives was lauded for helping save another. Brian Christopher Kohlberger had been working as a part-time security officer for Pleasant Valley School District, where his mother was on staff, when a hall monitor or grandmother began having trouble breathing and losing consciousness. Security guard Luis Fuentes, according to the Pocono record, dispatched Mr. Kohlberger to retrieve the school AED as fellow staffers and emergency personnel attended to their co-worker. Disaster was averted, but the incident still made the local paper in small-town Pennsylvania, where Mr. Kohlberger grew up with his parents, Michael and Mary Ann, and 2 sisters, Amanda and Melissa. It would mark one of the few times that Brian Kohlberger's name would surface online until he was arrested December 30th for the murders of Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Madison. Speculation and rumor had swirled exponentially for nearly 7 weeks before Mr. Kohlberger's arrest, as conspiracists and armchair detectives painted all manner of pictures of the student's then unknown killer. But the tall, skinny, bushy eyebrow PhD student, handcuffed by police, seemed to catch everyone off guard as he was led around timidly and stared blankly in his mugshot. He's familiar with mugshots. He spent years of his life studying them. Brian Kohlberger became a household name upon his December 30th arrest in Pennsylvania for the killings of the 4 University of Idaho students. People from his past, though shocked, built a picture of a bullied loner who could be aggressive. Fellow students from his time in Idaho described a criminology zealot who creeped people out as he faces trial, accused of shocking crime. Sheila Flynn asks, who really is Brian Kohlberger? Investigators were seen on Friday removing mattresses with apparent blood stains from the home where the 4 University of Idaho students were brutally murdered in November. The removal involved a bed frame, 2 mattresses on which dark stains were visible through plastic wrap, the New York Post reports. Forensic work has been winding down for weeks at the home where the children were killed. Police work has been winding down at the crime scene. Now, this says this report has been debunked by some of you all. I don't know what's the truth, but they say that Mr. Kohlberger joked about killings inside the Pennsylvania prison. They said that he reportedly appeared to make light of the University of Idaho murders while in Pennsylvania awaiting extradition. As the key suspect, a fellow inmate asked the 28-year-old why he killed the 4 students. Mr. Kohlberger reportedly denied carrying out the killings, but later appeared to make a joke about them, saying he was in Idaho late the night of the murders because the shopping is better in Idaho, quote unquote. Now, some people say that is not true. You're entitled to your opinion. An anonymous source inside the Monroe County Correctional Facility provided the account of the exchange to News Nation. The house where 4 university students were murdered in November will remain closed until February 1st, KBOI reports. In Idaho, an Idaho court judge accepted suspect Brian Kohlberger's request that the Latah County Prosecutor's Office preserve all evidence in its custody and notify the defense if it seeks any testing or examination that could be destructive. And it's also rumored that one of his sisters was at the crime scene taking photographs. I do not know if this woman, it is true or not. In the comments below that video, many people are saying that is not his sister. I really don't know. Thank you, Vapor. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you all so much. I don't really know what's the truth. Naturally, a lot of people have been following this case around the country because this has become of interest to many. But to Voices columnist Andrew Buncombe, some of the masses are misunderstanding a key element about the case and why it matters. It is crucial we now give these parents space to grieve. This is true. DNA analysis technique to help catch suspected Idaho murderer Kohlberger. This is a new technique that they have used. Genetic genealogy, in which investigators upload DNA to online databases, seek a match using their findings to build a potential family tree and hunt for witnesses and suspects. Isn't yet in wide use and is only supported by 2 mainstream genealogy websites. However, the technique has been used to solve high-profile cases such as the Golden State Killer. Richard Pasqua, former friend of Idaho murder suspect, is sharing details about Mr. Kohlberger and his heroin use. I got 6 years clean now, Mr. Pasqua says to Fox News. I worked in treatment and everything, but back then I was using, and so that's how I know for a fact he was using. I've gotten high with him a couple of times and used with him. I met him through some friends, and they told me that he was a little weird and he was a little socially awkward, I guess you could say, but he wasn't a bad guy, he added. Well, he is now. He needed a job, so I worked at a pizza shop at the time, and they were hiring, and I said, yeah, come on in and apply, and he did, and he got the job. So I worked with him a little bit, but he was quiet, though. Very interesting. The roommates failed to call 911 for nearly 8 hours after the slayings, leading many to ponder the reason for the delay. Steve Gonsalves, father of the murdered Kaylee Gonsalves, says he understands. I do know that she was petrified, and I think people respond a little bit different. I think she was just scared, very scared. And, you know, it's not like Hollywood where everyone behaves like people think they would, he told WFMZ. Independent.com is the source for the said information. What do you have to say about that information, Ann?
I'm sorry. Which part of it?
All of it. Heroin use, quiet, shy. I don't think he was quiet, shy. I think he was awkward and stayed to himself. But I think he later became a bully because people bullied him. He eventually lost weight. He was a little fat guy. Yes, he was. They also mentioned in one article he wanted to be an Army Ranger. I'd like to know what happened with that. Did he try to join the Army?
Possibly, and he couldn't pass any kind of psych eval.
Yeah, he couldn't pass the what? The mental exam or the physical?
Mental.
Yeah, I'd like to know that. I'd like to know that he tried to join the military. Because the fact that he became a security guard shows he wanted to be in control. And you see a lot of this with sadists. They always want to apply for security jobs. They always want to join the military or the police force or try to join any type of state police, FBI. That has been proven with many sadists. They always want to be in a job where they have some type of control over other people. Very interesting.
That's what I thought at first it was an officer, and I said, no, how is this person, if he is stalking these girls, moving around and not being, real noticed, he could still pass off as a student,
Well, yeah, he doesn't look old. His eyes are hollow.
Right.
I know the other sisters, they look the same. That's why I thought that girl at the scene kind of favored one of the sisters. But the sisters were in town, allegedly, for the hearing. So maybe it could be one of them. Why not? Might want to offer to help. But they have to work, so I would find that strange. But I don't know. I really don't know. But I find it interesting. His attorney is blonde, and he killed 2 blondes.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine sitting there with this guy, knowing he's hacked up these kids. That just be hard to sit across from a person who's murdered 4 children.
Yeah, and hopefully they don't give him a damn toothbrush.
Do what?
A toothbrush and make a shank out of it.
I don't see how he's gonna do that with a toothbrush. You'd have to saw it down, that plastic, some type of way.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is that he didn't fly home. Why not?
I believe because he wanted that vehicle out of there.
Yeah, but he just registered. Would it have made sense to just go ahead and take it home before it expired? It expired at the end of the month. He could have drove that car home and brought enough money back, flew home and bought a car from Washington State. Stay woke now.
Yeah, he was being paid as a teacher's assistant.
So that's what I'm saying. He could have dumped the car, told his mom and dad he wanted to sell it, didn't want it, let them put it up on a marketplace or somewhere and sell it, then they send him the money. Excuse me.
It's either he was sloppy and stupid, or he's wanting to get caught almost.
Mm-hmm.
Wanting this notoriety.
So that's what I'm saying. His behavior is contradictory because the stuff he did alludes to the fact that you want to get caught.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't check the fact that you didn't open this knife and sheath before you bought it, whenever you bought it, and you touched it at some point. You didn't wipe it thoroughly down before taking it out that night to kill the kids. You went to the crime scene before killing the kids numerous times, which puts your car, GPS and all that there at the scene. People could have seen your car there. So you don't even know who's going to testify to say they've seen the car parked on the sidewalk or around the corner. You don't know. You don't know if somebody's got a good visual on a camera of his car being parked there that night, the day before, the next morning. And I'm betting those people that's got the audio of the 50 feet of the noise, they got a camera. Why would I have audio and not a camera? That makes no sense.
It's like he placed that sheath there too. You'd think.
I don't believe that. I don't believe he did that on purpose. I think that's where he started. He had to pull the knife out, so he had to lay the sheath down.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
Why would you leave the sheath there? That makes no sense. You got to be able to put the knife back in the case. So why would you think he would leave it there deliberately?
Wanting to get caught. Why did he leave a witness?
When they put the bolo out on the Elantra, you could have turned yourself in then if that's the case. See, that's why none of this makes no sense. They put the bolo out. You never turned yourself in. You never even went forward just to say, hey, I drive an Elantra. Just thought I'd let you all know my name is such and such, such and such. See, only a fool would do that because you should know that they would inquire about you, might ask for your phone record, so you'd be just handing yourself over. But yet he still laid around for 1 month in Washington, and then the father flies in. They go back in the car But then you're sitting here wearing gloves, emptying trash late night at 4 o'clock in your neighbor's trash and cleaning your car. He knew they were onto him. See, that's the thing about a gut instinct. You could be guilty as hell, but that doesn't mean your gut instinct ain't working.
Right.
He knew they were onto him. That's why he cleaned the car thoroughly when he got to Pennsylvania. That's why he was emptying stuff in people's trash bins, trying to probably put anything that he touched in separate garbage cans to where they wouldn't dig in a garbage can and get his DNA. But what he didn't understand, because he's so stupid, they can get your DNA by a warrant if they felt like they had probable cause to. He probably felt like they didn't have anything, so they weren't going to come with a warrant. But he still showed he was scared because he's out at 4 a.m. with gloves on, putting things in other people's trash. And that is so stupid, because you think these people don't look at their security camera and wonder, who the hell is this putting trash in our trash bin? This boy is stupid. He's just stupid.
And sloppy. And I don't believe he's as smart, or he might be book smart, but he's totally no common sense, no anything.
What do you believe he wore gloves? To the crime scene. Hello?
With OCD, he possibly could have. But it had to have been, yeah.
Yeah, his facial expression, exactly. He was scared because he was leaning in intently, listening to that cop.
Yes, he was. He was scared.
He wanted to read them and see what they were saying, and looking at how he's looking at him, he was scared to death. He was scared. But even if he wore surgical gloves, he still could have cut himself. He's a monster. I mean, whatever happened with him in childhood, high school, it may be sad at that time. The fact that he got on drugs, he probably felt, like I said, lonely. Nobody cared for him. He couldn't identify with other people. So he decided, well, I'll just try a little something, because everybody knows that most people start, using to numb the pain. It usually starts out recreational, but then it becomes numbing. So you got somebody that's lonely, miserable, unhappy. The drugs is a perfect suit for him, because he didn't really have no good friends. He tend to, push people away because of the way he carried himself and the way he acted. So drugs were all he had at that time. But then now you clean yourself up, you go in the world, you're trying to go to school, get education, but you're still not fitting in with people. So he had to have been awfully lonely. And that would be a lonely place to be when you feel like you don't fit in nowhere. So I'm wondering, what do these parents have to say? And if they would tell the truth about how they raised him and what in the hell was going on with him. Because whether you are tall, short, fat, black, white, Indian, Mexican, Jew, Arab, you can instill values in your children. You can teach your children values. You can teach them a moral compass. You can be positive around your kids to where they will have some pride in themselves. So what I'm wanting to know, what type of parents did he have while he was a child and in high school? Did they pump him up, pat him on the back? Or were any of them critical? Or maybe they were happy-go-lucky people, and he just still was just unhappy with himself because of his weight and not being able to mingle with the other kids and other people.
I heard a doctor the other day say her and her husband both agreed after their divorce.
Well, Mr. Gonsalves said he did look scared to him in court. He didn't look secure. That's the word Mr. Gonsalves said, that he watched him in court and he didn't seem as secure. He probably wasn't secure. He probably was scared in there.
Yeah, I'd say so. That empathy above education to those parents were the most important. Because if without empathy and respect and teach our child some manners, they're not going to have no social with making.
That's why I think it's interesting that whether he was overweight or not, the fact that he still couldn't mingle. I know a lot of kids that had weight on them, and they were social butterflies in school. They talked, they laughed, they participated in sports, they had fun, they went out. I mean, a lot of us girls were a little chunky in school and we didn't get teased and bullied in school and we had friends and we went to social events. So that's not necessarily true just because you have weight on you that you are an outcast. I guess it depends on your attitude and your disposition, how you carry yourself and how you think of yourself.
Right, right.
Because there were a lot of big kids in my school, naturally, white, black, and most of us got along where I went. I didn't never see people just naturally just get bullied 24/7. Junior high, maybe, but high school, no. I never saw anybody get bullied in high school. Yeah, I thought his nose looked broken too. But then I looked at that picture today. I think it's just maybe the shape of his nose. It's got an odd shaped nose. I'm going to read you something I saw on Twitter. The person is saying it's not him, but I'm just going to read the post anyway, just because it's a very interesting post. Hold on a second. I hope I can find it. Oh, let's see. There's so many of them that were out. I don't know if I can find it. Because I don't know the girl, the person that posted it. Let's see. Let's see this one here. Let's see. They believe he posted his different people online. So I can't find. I'm trying to find it. Let's see.
I've been checking my doors, make sure they're locked often now.
I hope so.
Goodness.
Okay. Someone asked, was this BK? This was uploaded July 4th, 2011. Some girl underneath says it's not him, but it does look like a picture of him under the name XR, those with visuals now. Regular visitor. Now, this is July 4th, 2011. I don't know if this is him posting it or he shared this post. Either way, it's a sad person speaking. I have had this horrible depersonalization go on in my life for almost 2 years. I often find myself making simple human interactions, but it is as if I am playing a role-playing game such as Oblivion. I can see what is going on. I'm slightly into it, but I can pause the game and focus on my real life. In this case, my life is the game, and my old self can be reached by pausing the game. But how? I often think of things that humans do, things I have done my whole life. I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth, as I am starting to view everyone as this. Everything I have ever done makes no sense. How did things get this way? How am I wearing this shirt? And who decided that humans shall wear shirts like this? Are we all just advanced animals with possession? Or is there more that I can't see? I can't connect. I view everything as I would if I was playing Oblivion, pointless and full of nothing, out of reality. I am moving out of my house. My last holidays were already lived. So I guess this is when they were saying this is not him because he would have been a child at 16 or so. But where was I? As my family group hugs and celebrates, I am stuck in this void of nothing, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. I feel dirty, like there is dirt inside of my head, my mind. I'm always dizzy and confused. I feel no self-worth. I am once felt at home in is past. As I hug my family, I look into their faces. I see nothing. It's like I am looking at a video game, but less. I feel less than mentally damaged. It is like I have severe brain damage. I'm stuck in the depths of my mind where I have to constantly battle my demons. Am I here or am I fake? I feel myself slipping away. I hear screams faintly, but I constantly battle away from it. What if I let go? Where would I be? Would I ever come back to reality? I try to remember where I originated from, but I can't. I barely remember my childhood. I often fear being 80 years old alone and having faint memories of my, parents, everything I missed out on. I think about my father, what a good man he is, how I treat him like dirt because I have this condition. I can't take it. I got this when I was in my stage of discovery. I think I'm reading that right. Wait a minute. Brain is small. I barely remember my childhood. I often fear being 80 years old alone and having faint memories of my parents, everything I missed out on. I think about my father. This is just crazy. He talks about what a good man he is. I treat him like dirt because I have this condition and I can't take it. I got this when I was in my stage of discovery. Now I look in the mirror and see this sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man. Stupid man in the mirror. He is a complete disgrace. He doesn't even deserve to live. I remember when I was 15, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. Everything was so generic. Nowhere felt like home. I saw things that were not there, a different reality. I felt eerie and alone. I died during those nights. I felt like a criminal, but where was my record? I can't talk without flinching now. I used to be this healthy, blonde-haired boy with blue eyes, and in a few years, I have darker hair and darker eyes, half the body weight. Where did I leave off? I try to sleep. I try to clear my head, but the pressure won't go away. The pain and depression won't leave. Being me is this horrible disease that I was given. I think of this as I succumb to sleep, but I see a large intensity of black, yellow, white fuzz. It makes my mind fizzle, and I can barely keep in the bounds of reality. It is as if the ringing in my ears and the fuzz in my vision is simply all of the demons in my head mocking me. I fall asleep, but I wake up quickly to bloody screams. Is any of this here? Am I brain damaged? No, question mark, exclamation point. Then why am I like this? I have these thoughts all in my head. I search for someone to relate to me. Everyone looks down upon me. No one can relate. As I try to read, suddenly my eyes look right through the words. When I look up, I see blue dots near the center of my vision. When I feel slightly calm, it gets hard to breathe, and I see bright dots in my vision. Nothing enjoyable. I don't know what the rest of that is. I always feel as if I'm not here, completely depersonalized, mentally experienced, fog, lack of comprehension, and sometimes feel like my life is a movie, depression, no interest in activity, Constant thought of suicide, crazy thoughts, delusions of grandeur, anxiety, poor self-image, poor social skills, no emotion. I feel like nothing has a point to it. When I get home, I mean to my family, this is started when VS did. I don't know what that VS is. I felt no emotion, and along with depersonalization, I could say and do whatever I want with little remorse. Everyone hates me pretty much as I am an asshole. I don't know. And
I didn't know.
Looks like him in the picture as a young boy. XR dot those with visuals now. He would have been a regular visitor. I don't know if he was sharing that. Somebody was asking this. Nicole Schmidt was saying this to Brian Enton. Was this him writing this? But somebody said it's not him. I don't know. I don't know.
The 17-year-old, unless he was in some kind of therapy or.
So whoever wrote it, if it wasn't him, because the person identified themselves as a man, but then it said moving out. But a lot of people don't know he was in and out of treatment facilities. So he could have wrote that and just called himself a man as a 16, 17-year-old. Because you would have to move out if you're going to a treatment facility. And they said he'd been to several trying to get clean.
And he's using the wording where he had been in treatment facilities from other doctors. Because what 17-year-old is going to use the wording of delusions of grandeur or depersonalization?
I don't know. Well, he could. Well, you got to remember, people now use bigger words. The kids, they're more savvy.
That's true too.
Depending on how you were raised and the family he lives in. He's got two sisters that work in counseling and psychology. So who knows what type of words their parents used growing up. And then when you go to certain schools and environments, the people, they're more advanced in their wordings than other school districts and households and stuff. I don't know. Jesus mercy. I just don't know what to say. But the words in this paragraph, short love letter to thyself, it's scary. Whoever wrote it, that they have become detached and don't know how to deal with people, that they don't feel anything, no remorse. That's deep.
And reduced people to animals. That no more that they're just animals.
Well, he was saying himself too.
Yeah, himself too.
Himself too. Are we just animals? I mean, I can see saying that when you look at how we act and behave and the things we do and say to each other. I mean, we are two-legged creatures. I don't know. I don't know about him being schizophrenic. I don't know. That is something I would like to know when they decide to analyze him, because I'm sure somebody will. If he does have some type of mental disorder, such as antisocial personality, or is he a sociopath or psychopath? What is he exactly? Because to just wake up one day having all these issues with people, women, possible don't like different races, homosexuality, and then you're now murdering people. You got a lot going on. Good night, Mimi. You got a lot going on. There's a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What I don't know. But I think he was gonna dump that car. I think he realized I registered because it was time to register it, but I got a feeling these people want me. And he especially had to have that feeling when he got pulled over in Indiana. There's no way he didn't think they were following him or were on to him, because anybody with sense would say, okay, I done got pulled over 2 times in 10 minutes. His father may not have known anything, but he knew. And many people, as that girl said in that documentary on CBS about 48 Hours, I played it earlier, but I got a copyright claim on it, so they didn't want you to play any of it. That friend said that, the female, is that I think that's why he majored in psychology. He was trying to learn about himself, not just killers and sick people. I think he was feeling those sick feelings that you're not supposed to be feeling towards mankind.
Right, right.
So he was trying to really learn about himself.
Yeah, why was he having all these thoughts? And
Yeah, he probably was having those thoughts, that disillusion, the detachment from human beings and emotion, and let me go see what I can see. And the more he got into it, he started identifying with what he's hearing, these people, how these people behave and how they think, because he is that person.
right.
He feels like, I am this person. I am these people. So the more he read, the more I think he identified. And that became a very dangerous tool. Him reading and reading and reading, because I think he got lost into translation. I really do. The more he read, the worse he became. Boy, that's scary, because we all got some issues of OCD and PTSD, and I mean, all type of things that people can have wrong with them. But do you cross the line? And as I said, I've always wanted to bring content to that what makes a killer? When does a person decide to murder? Because as I brought you content earlier, there are different reasons that people murder. One that was mentioned with serial killing mass murderers is financial gain. And at first it kind of took me aback. So I thought, but then it dawned on me, okay, I know what they're saying. People that like rob and just go on the spree. They go here, stick up a store, go here, stick up a house, go over here, carjack somebody, to get the money. But it's still psychotic.
Yeah, it is.
Still psychotic to just go from, what I'm saying, store to store robbing people, or going from person to person, snatching their purse and carjacking them and killing them. It's extreme. And I saw a video tonight that was so disturbing. It was a Caucasian girl in California. Well, it's morning now. She was working alone in a furniture store. And this guy, this is probably about a little over a year ago, or just a year ago, a black guy who was homeless walked into the store and he stabbed her and walked back out. And then they got him 30 minutes later at a convenience store, pulling a little money out. And it was like, he's just walking around like it's nothing. His arrest record is so long. I posted his video to my community board. They have 12 mug shots. Really have 15 mug shots up there on the screen.
Wow.
He's been arrested from different states. He was traveling up and down the California coast, going from town to town, as a vagabond, homeless. And when they apprehended him 6 days later from killing that girl in that store, he was wandering around some nice little neighborhood in California. It was residential where they had a lot of businesses. And there he was walking down the street, and somebody recognized him and called 911. And it was, I think, a hefty reward for a capture, because I think it had got up to $250,000. It started at $50,000. It got up to $250,000. So they said they had to decide on how they were going to divide up the money. But I thought, man, imagine that. $250,000, and you just spot this guy walking down the street. And he just stabbed her. He didn't know her. He's homeless. She didn't know him. And one of the ladies who worked in a business, she said, we make sure to ask our customers when we see them coming in to tell them to put their backpacks down, or they can't come in with a backpack. And I thought, imagine telling that one, hey, you can't be in here with that backpack. You'll have to remove it or sit it up here behind the counter. You wouldn't even gotten a chance to tell him nothing because he stabbed her. And what was sad, when they showed the circumference of the store, it was a nice sized store. There was no way she should have been in that store working by herself, how big it was. Way too big. One person walking in there by themselves. Anybody could have came in there by themselves or a partner. Locked the door, and there you are. You're stuck in the store with some people wanting to play funny games with you. And these things have happened with people working in stores, convenience stores, late night, being robbed and sexually assaulted and murdered. You just don't ever know the mind of the killer. And he's just some random guy who's been committing, crimes up and down the coast in other states. And they said they don't even know how he got to California, because he was living somewhere else. Matter of fact, I think he lived South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So they were trying to figure out, how in the hell did he get all the way to California from South Carolina? Probably took a Greyhound bus. You know, took a Greyhound bus to this city, then took a Greyhound bus to this city. Then before you know it, you're getting closer and closer from the Midwest to the West Coast.
Right. And each stop, get a little bit more money.
Yeah, walk around, maneuver, break the law, catch a charge. Like you said, get a little money, get another Greyhound bus or hitchhike. Man, he was a walking time bomb, man. People like him are scary because that's how it's hard to catch some killers when they move around like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one guy that killed those kids in Kentucky. He jumped on the train and he'd steal from the victims and give the jury to his wife. Oh my God, they found a treasure trove of dead people's jury that he had given his wife. He was the one that killed those kids on the railroad tracks. You remember that case?
I don't.
Yeah. Some boy and a girl was out one night walking. They were students. I think they were University of Kentucky, Lexington. And they were just out having a good time at night in the wrong place. And he just so happened to be walking by.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he used a knife, I ain't mistaken. He was vicious. He was a Hispanic male. He was vicious because he killed the boyfriend.
And this case too proves that it can be anybody.
Well, that's the whole point. That just like the case with the kids walking out at night, they shouldn't have been out there by the railroad tracks. That was dangerous. There's just certain places you just don't go alone. Right. They didn't have no business out there because there's nobody there in case something happens. Okay, like this girl, she's in a district full of businesses, but she's in a store by herself. I don't know if it was daytime or nighttime, but nonetheless, she's in the store by herself. There's nobody to help her. Okay, she's laying there bleeding by herself. These kids now, they think they're in the comfort of their homes, sleeping. But as you see, you're not even safe in your own damn house.
Yeah, my brother's girlfriend in Cincinnati was raped in broad daylight from a shopping mall.
Where?
A shopping mall.
Or was she in the mall?
Yes, she was in the mall. The guy was going around acting like he was selling some kind of magazines. You know how they had the teen magazine?
Oh, we had a case. We had a case like that in Knoxville many years ago. There was a black boy. He killed the older white lady, walked in her house.
Yeah.
And he was selling magazines. And they were waiting on him because he was supposed to be meeting them back, I think, to catch the bus or do something. He didn't meet them back at the meet time. And he was just walked up in this nice little, cul-de-sac where they have like little condos, townhouses. And he, I think, walked up in her house. She didn't even know he was in there. That was a horrible story because it's like you think it's safe in your neighborhood to leave your doors unlocked, but it's not. Because he just walked up in a house, just walked up in there.
Yeah, and this mall was surrounded by a little bit of woods, and he got her outside, told her that, well, I've got the magazines out in my vehicle. Do you want to look at them? Got her outside.
Oh, I would have never met nobody outside that mall.
I know.
No, hell no. Because once your bets are off, once you start walking out of the jurisdiction of people, and you don't know if they got somebody else working with them. See, he could have had somebody else working with him in a car, a van. No. That's why I told you all during the holidays, don't meet nobody nowhere. I don't care if you're even in a shopping center or the mall and somebody says, here, come over here to this car. I've got some jewelry or perfume I'm selling. Just bypass it.
Right.
Just bypass it. I don't care if they're telling you they got a Versace bag or Louis Vuitton bags for sale or they're discounted, they're fake, whatever. Hey, just follow me over here. No, I ain't following you no damn where. Because they could get you over there and actually have the merchandise there and not there, and you don't know, and they could push you in a trunk or back seat or just rob you, just take your money.
Yes. But he preyed on a young, naive girl, just like these girls were naive, probably.
Let me ask you something. How do you think he found these kids? Because this is all baffling to me. Even though I know people breaking people's houses every day, I know wealthy people's houses are broken too, which I can never understand that. Because you're supposed to have ADT and high security, and you keep seeing all these famous people getting their homes broken too. Robert De Niro had his house broken too a month or so ago, and I don't even understand how the hell that happened. So I'm trying to understand how he got in that house and how he chose them. That's so baffling to me. But I know people break into people's houses all the time because all they need is a way in. But the thing is, we're in a modern day of doorbell cameras and cameras. Why would you risk breaking in somebody's house and you don't know if they've got a doorbell camera, ring camera, peephole camera, and you're willing to just go walk up in their damn house, whether a door is unlocked, window unlocked, just go up in there. There's people who have cameras inside of their houses. So that's what's amazing to me, that he would even risk it.
Yeah, did he know a student that possibly lived in his area that was a student at Idaho State? And did he possibly know the girls, this friend of a friend? And did he say, oh, they throw some great parties and these are beautiful girls? Or did he find them on social media?
Right.
I mean,
yeah, because they got public pages. Kaylee's IG is public, and it shows the location. At the top of it, it has her name, and it has Moscow, Idaho. So I don't know if maybe he was just looking for, just typed in Moscow, and maybe something one of the girls was saying came up in a post. As a matter of fact, I'll type it in now and just see.
Thing though, like he said, well, we went out there was shopping. I thought, well, where's he think he is in Minnesota? Where that's the first thing hit my mind was, that big American mall or whatever, that huge shopping mall in Minnesota. I thought, shopping, what's he shopping for?
Well,
in Washington State. Yeah. He was shopping for girls, I believe.
Well, that was a private joke if he did say it.
Yeah.
As that one guy said, the heavyset guy, a student there at Washington State, he said, I can go out to the bar and get any girl I want. That's what you want. That's what you wish you could do.
Yeah, you wish this.
Now, here goes some guy saying, a lot of twist in this. Do you think he acted alone? Why did his surviving roommate that came out of a room wait so long to call 911? He's got these pictures blowed up of him when he's sitting in the car. He looks like a damn nut. Got a lot of groups, Facebook groups. Let's see what Moscow, Idaho City looks like. I don't see anything. Oh, community. Oh my gosh, one of my friends has visited there. She went there in 2013. Public even shows where she went. See how dangerous that is?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm looking at somebody I know right now who's posted to this from 2013. See, anybody can just see you. See, they got pictures of people playing in a band with the logo in the background of the bar. Lady posted her and her son sitting in a chair. I want to see if I see any pictures of these kids posted. Then we'll know. I don't see anything so far. Community. Let's see. Home. See? Just like that. Anybody could just. I cannot believe this girl. I know her. She's posted here. But I'm going to ask her too. What the hell were you doing in Moscow many years ago? See, that's scary.
Uh-huh.
I don't see nothing else about it.
Yeah, I've had some distant relatives here lately. It got back to me that they had been, I thought, well, knew some information about me. Not a criminal record or anything, but, and I thought, well, why are they had to went to the computer to find this information. Why are they looking me up in the first place?
They got other little small colleges there too. New St. Andrews College, a Christian liberal arts college. In that small town, they got all that. That's strange.
Yeah.
20,000. So you don't know what he was doing. You have no idea what.
I wonder if he did when the population compared to students, and is that why he made that creepy.
26,000. That's not a lot at all. And then it's 11,000 students.
Yeah, that's half the population, it seems.
Okay. Somebody is saying locals for Washington say the shopping is better in Idaho. It might be cheaper. The less people you have in a place, stuff will be cheaper. That's common sense.
Yeah.
But see, this is what you don't understand. You don't know what he was looking up and saw a post from one of these kids. Just don't know.
Yeah, I don't believe a man would make a statement in the first place about the shopping.
The shopping's better. Yeah.
What could be in a small town like that, like big outlet stores? There's nothing,
They've got a thing now called University of Idaho Student Murder News and Information. Oh, Lord. They probably just started that. Yeah, November 16, 2022. They got the kid's profile picture up there. And look at this fool. Cops won't catch killer because they don't know how to. They only collar drunk teens. And then somebody said, oops, spoke too soon, eh? Oh my God, see what I'm saying? Nuts. Does people say anything? See, there's no telling what he pulled up and these kids' posts were on here. Could have been anything. Moscow bread box.
I don't see how Kaylee's poor father is sitting in that courtroom. Oh my goodness.
Well, said that they would have somebody there from the family representing each day they go.
Yeah. But you know how hard it is for him to be trying to constrain
Somebody
himself.
says Washington has the highest alcohol tax. Yeah. Illinois has a high tax on alcohol too. See, I bet you these kids posted to something and he just came across it. Or he just went over to Moscow and drove around. And crossed the path somewhere. Could have been anywhere. He could have been walking around the campus itself. So you don't
Restaurant.
Could have just followed one of them. This happens.
And it seems like to be a small enough town that everybody knows, as their word gets around,
About what?
Of who's who and what's going on. And I'm sure it's like our town. It's small and everybody talks. Or it could have been at the Greek restaurant that two of the girls worked at. But the first ping was August 21st.
Say what, honey?
I believe the first ping was August 21st. That was in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
That they found from.
Yeah, he caught. We now know that ticket citation that was at night.
Oh,
he probably was over there.
Mm-hmm.
At that house. He had been over there, and then he went on the highway, and he caught the ticket on the highway leaving out. See, this is what I'm saying. This shit is deep.
Yeah, it is.
But you don't know people. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to get out of here, too.
I sure appreciate you let me up here.
Saying that because Brian said that. Well, I don't know what he said, didn't say, because everybody wants to, bicker back and forth about who did what and what? Woman accused of calling in sick too much pulls gun on employer. I can't. Somebody says good for her. See, now that's not nice. This is WJHL. This is up the highway from me. I think. Let me see where this is located. This is crazy. It's almost 1:00 in the morning.
And it's getting worse and worse. I mean,
Memphis, Tennessee. No, she's not near me. It's just a local news station. They're the ones that cover Summer Wells' case. I think it's happening in Memphis. Shouldn't shock you about nothing going on down in Memphis. Good Lord. Let's pull a gun out. She said the manager of the store said that day Holiday sent her a text message saying she wasn't coming to work because she was sick. The manager said after she told Holiday she was being removed from the schedule for calling sick too much, Holiday showed up at the business with a gun. She pulled the gun out of her right pocket, pointed it at her, and waved it around. Police said there were 3 other employees and customers at the register when it happened. The victim said Holiday put the gun back in her pocket and threw a stapler at her before another employee escorted her out of the store. She said Holiday threatened to shoot up her vehicle before leaving. Good God. It's not funny, but my goodness. Through a stapler. She could have put her eye out anything. This is crazy. Oh, if this is in Memphis, because that's where it starts out, reporting from, damn, these people are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about the people down there. It's just like, what in God's name is wrong with everybody? They're just losing their damn minds.
Yeah.
I got to find me another topic. I've got to branch away from this. But I thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you, Queen.
Okay. You have a good week, honey.
You too, sweetie.
Okay. Happy New Year. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That's Ann. Thank you all so much for joining me. Please go back to the beginning of this live to check out the content pertaining to the UCLA dorm murder of Miss Andrea. Her name was Andy. She was asleep in her apartment and left her balcony door open, and a guy visiting a friend across the street from her had crawled into her apartment and I guess attempted to sexually assault her, stabbed her 19 times and set her apartment on fire to cover up the murder. And eventually he was caught. The friend across the street got less than 2 years in prison for aiding and abetting. And the perpetrator got life. The point of that story is that the girl above her was a sorority sister. She heard her screaming and heard her dog barking, and she called 911. I bring you this information to compare it to what happened in Idaho at 1122 King Road. Somebody spoke up at this UCLA apartment complex. A sorority sister heard her other sister screaming below her in the apartment, and she dialed 911 because she knew something wasn't right. And she knew that the dog did not bark excessively. We get information in this case here that allegedly Kaylee's dog was barking. Different conversations were going on in the house while one roommate was opening and closing doors while the perpetrators in the house killing people. And on her third opening of a door, the perpetrator walks by her without harming her and out the sliding door. You're entitled to believe the version that was given to you. I'd like to hear the 911 call. I'd like to hear at what point did she get up that morning and which direction did she go first? Upstairs, Xana's room, or downstairs to Bethany's room? That's what I'd like to know. Call come from inside of the house or outside of the house? Her cell phone or Bethany's cell phone? Who actually made the 911 call from one of their phones? And did they make the phone call from either inside of the house or outside of the house? What's the truth to the 911 call? Because to me, it's suspect as well. Because somebody put that information out on social media and the police never confirmed the who's, the where's, and the whys of the 911 call. Only that it was the phone of one of the girls that survived. Blessings to everybody. Healings for all involved. Those who survived and the family members. And all I can say to any of you out here, whether you are a young person, college student, or an adult, please be aware of your surroundings. Keep all your doors and windows locked. Do not give out keys and passcodes to people. I don't even recommend putting keys outside under the mat and flower pots because you just don't know the day that anything could happen. The one day you can leave a key out. That could be the day that a storm comes and your mat blows away. There's a key sitting there for the wrong person to walk by and see that the key's exposed. Now somebody has a key to your house and could enter it at any time when you are not there or when you are there. You have to be vigilant about your surroundings. You have to know when you are walking in or out of a business, someone home, something don't seem right. Try to make a smooth exit out. don't look back. You sense something walking in your house don't seem right. Something looks moved, disarray, broken. Step back out and call 911. And definitely if you're living in a house with other people and you hear something strange, send a text message to those people's phones and see if you get a response. If not, call 911 from inside of the room where you are and wait for the police to come and tell them, I will not come out of this room unless I know that you are outside and the dispatcher is verifying that you are standing outside of my bedroom door. We do not need a repeat of Moscow, Idaho, because I'm very fearful of a repeat. Anybody mimicking this crime, because you do have more sick and demented souls out there wanting a taste of flesh, such as this Brian Koiberger. He could have been way more than what he became, but he chose this plight. That was to his own choosing. And he did not have the right to snuff out these kids' lives. And it's sad when you look at their pictures and their photographs and you hear their parents and friends talk about them, co-workers, bosses. It's just despicable that they had no idea their time would be short and that they would leave here in such a gruesome manner. And I can't imagine what they went through on that early morning. I don't ever want to know. I don't ever want to experience what they went through, because that is horrific. Whether they were sleeping or they saw the perpetrator approaching them. It's just ghastly. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeGanzi129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during the live streams. Thank you so much for your time. Please have a prosperous week. Please check out my community board for said information and updates and movies of the week, series of the week. Please check out the said content. I will post a new movie for this week. You have been listening to The Vault.